All right, guys, here we go. You guys voted for Dr. K. I like this concept video. Like I like that. I like this. Dr. K is going to be talking about the crisis going on with young men. I think it's a beautiful thing. Not that crisis, that's a bad thing, but I think it's good to talk because, bro, the only people right now that care, pretend to care about young men are red pillers, and they just use it as an opportunity to dumpster women. Okay, any group, it doesn't matter if they're black, white, men, women, LGBTQ, straight, any group where they centralize their advocation around trying to take down the other group is not an advocacy group, it's a bully group. Okay, so it's good that some people are acknowledging it because you don't really see that too much. It's a beautiful thing. So let's get this party started. Also, if you're trying to get into working out, guys, go look up 5x5 Strong Lifts or Starting Strength by Mark Ripto. It's a great resource to start getting into it. Let's go.
This is super scary. 50% of men who kill themselves have no history or evidence of mental illness.
Oh my God.
What causes people to kill themselves is they try to connect with others and they get rejected. You know, is
that true?
I can feel the hurt. I can feel the loss.
Damn. A real empath.
Dr. Alok Kanogia.
He's a psychiatrist, Harvard Medical School instructor,
Real-life monk
who uses his own addictive past
to help millions of people improve their own mental health.
Everyone
He has an addictive past? I like that. I don't like that people have addictions, but I like people who are fundamentally flawed who give advice. Because I really don't like people who don't have flaws or specifically acknowledge flaws. Because, like, what life experience do you have to tell me, like, what I'm doing wrong? Bro, I'm a degenerate. You know, I've gone through a significant amount, and I mean this truthfully, of self-discovery in the past 3 years. Huge. You know, I've had the benefit of it because I have a good job now where I make enough money to live comfortably. I'm my own boss. This is what I do for a living. And I found the woman of my dreams, and and she's also a behavioral specialist, which helps because I'm fucking crazy. And I really understand myself, or much better than I ever did. And it's like, it's crazy, you know what I mean? And so, like, I would rather get advice from somebody like that who's had problems. I used to be a fucking unironic gooner with anger problem. Never hit anybody. Well, I did in school back in the day, but never like a partner. But I'm not proud of myself. I would get angry. I would like, you know, break things sometimes, especially when I played League of Legends. I stopped playing that. Not very good. So I'm looking for that kind of a person to give me advice. I'm not looking for like the fucking goody two shoes who doesn't really understand what they're saying. You know, if you've never been through shit, how are you going to help me get through my shit? You know what I mean? So I do have a happy ending, bro. I'm fucking blessed. Every day my wife will get upset and she's like, "Oh, this sucks." I said everything sucks, but it's a beautiful thing because I'm happy now. It's incredible stuff. You love my stream? Thank you. I appreciate that.
is getting screwed, but there's a crisis with men. People telling us that being a man means that you're toxic, that there's a patriarchy, that your testosterone level makes you violent. So men are strong.
Well, there's probably a level of truth to testosterone making you a little more violent. That's just the emotion that men are cursed with, and you got to learn how to regulate that emotion properly. It's tough.
Struggling right now, and the rest of the world says, no, you're not. You're privileged. And these people have been literally killing themselves because no one has been listening to them. Except there's one group of people who says your life sucks. And that's these toxic masculine people. And these guys say, I will show you a way to make it better. And that's when things go bad. And this, by the way, is how people wind up with addiction.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a lot of people are just looking for meaning. So when you're running around, you have no meaning, and you find a group whose basically life mission, the red pill, is to hate women. That's the meaning in your life now. So now, you know, before you're demotivated, you don't love yourself, you don't love life, you know, you think it's bad to love yourself and life and you know, everything. And then you find these people who are like, women are fucking worthless. And you're like, wow. And I'm not even kidding. That gives me something to focus on. That's my meaning in life, is to get better in spite of women and to not to disrespect women. That's what it is. That's not the right meaning in your life. But like, who's offering an alternative? You know what I mean? So to me, you know what? I think it's a beautiful thing. I think that finding good love, which is hard, is phenomenally positively impactful. It gives me deep meaning. Trying to build a family gives me deep meaning. Going to the gym has been giving me an additional side quest bit of meaning. You know what I mean? It's a nice extra to my life. These are things that can give you meaning. You got to search for meaning in your life, because if you don't have meaning, you're not going to be particularly happy. That's like a big deal. So
Because when you look at addiction, what happens is we use a substance or a technology as an antidote to pain. So I've worked with people who have pornography addiction, for example, that will have work on one screen and they will literally have pornography on the second screen.
that's crazy. I've never done that before.
You're joking.
No, very common. And this
I'm just gooned.
is where there's a big problem in the world today.
And you've got this young generation of women as well that are exploding in their suicidality. Loneliness seems to be getting worse and worse. What is the remedy to this?
I think a lot of it's because we aren't connecting as much anymore because we're on the internet all the time, you know?
So this is something that's very important to understand.
And on top of that, it's not just not connecting. I think it has to do with all the information that's getting launched into your fucking brain. I mean, people tend to. I think people are more stressed right now, especially in the first world, because they're constantly seeing every bad thing that's happening across the world always, and specifically things that get you riled up. So if you're like a gay or a trans person and you're on like Twitter or some social media, you're constantly seeing some kind of violence against a gay or a trans person, and it's making you feel like your entire life is in jeopardy. Same thing with women, same thing with everything. Twitter is really toxic. Like I'll go on Twitter and I'm constantly seeing people fighting, stabbing each other on like subways in New York, and I'm like, I live in New York, and my wife just went to the city to go to see a play, and I'm like, I was terrified because I'm like, I don't want my wife to die, to get stabbed. And it's like, Jesus Christ, that's all you're seeing, and it's putting you on edge, it's making you super freak out. You know, it's having an impact on people's lives, and we really need to learn how to manage it and try to at least be aware of like, oh, you know what, like some of this information, like I'm almost getting like fucking psyoped into thinking that everything is horrible and not to leave my house. Yeah, and we're overstimulated. There's so much information.
Everyone who's listening to this podcast needs to.
It's absolutely crazy to me that so many of you have decided to watch our show, and so many of you have decided to subscribe to our show. We now have 5 million subscribers on YouTube, which is a number that I
Hey, God bless.
just can't comprehend. And it's a dream that I absolutely never could have had. We started the Diary of a CEO just over 3 years ago now. And in my wildest expectations, we might have had 100,000 subscribers by now. So you can imagine how shocked I am that so many of you have chosen to tune into these conversations every week and spend some time with us. So thank you. And I made a deal with you. I made a deal that if you subscribe to the show, that we would continue to raise the bar. And in 2024, we're going to raise the bar like never before. I've been working for the last 9 months on a surprise for all of you that have subscribed to the show. And I'm very excited to deliver that for you. The production's going to change. We're going to go even further with our guests, and we're going to tell even more global stories. So as always, if you appreciate what we're doing here, the simple, free favor I'll ask from you is to hit the subscribe button. Let's get on with the episode. Dr. K,
Stephen.
with all of your work and all of the content you've produced, if someone's just clicked on this podcast now, what do you think they're going to get out of this conversation? What do you think they're going to walk away with?
I hope what they'll walk away
Probably a boner.
with is the realization that
Sorry.
you are the instrument of your life, and understanding that fundamental instrument that you use to live your life, your body, your mind, will ultimately help you accomplish whatever you want.
It's a beautiful thing.
And what is the
I like that. You know what I mean? Like I understand when you have like a socioeconomic conversation that, you know, there are lots of outside environmental forces that are going to impact you that make it so that you may not be able to succeed in some ways. And then anytime someone's like, hey, listen, you have agency, you have the ability to have a positive impact on your life, everybody always goes like, oh, it's only conservatives, only like usually like right-wing conservative people in the online space that are they're trying to dismiss that socioeconomic aspect. But it's true. Like you have a level of impact on your life. Can you make your life? Can you be a millionaire? Not everybody. Most people will not be able to be a millionaire. But if you put more effort into your life, you will get more out of it. That might not mean a whole lot, but if you can keep putting that effort into your life to get more out of it, you can find somebody to be with. You can have kids, and you'll put your kids in a better position for their lives to be better. And like it really is. You need to have some level of faith in something. You know, you got to have faith in it doesn't need to be like religious faith. You got to have faith in like family and friends. That's a huge thing that keeps me going too. Like I have a lot of family loyalty. I love my family. I think it's a beautiful thing. I think that family will give me my immortality. A child will give me my immortality, passing on my teachings and my morals and my ethics. That'll give me immortality. You know what I mean? I think it's a beautiful thing. So
the opposite mindset to that, to understanding that you're the instrument of your life? What is the typical mindset that people have that go through their lives without the realization that they are the instrument of their life?
I think it's assuming that something outside of them will fix
Sorry, Mom.
things inside of them. Right? So people will think like, okay, if I get a promotion, then I'll be happy. If I date this person, then I will be happy. If I have this amount of money, I will be happy. Everyone assumes that things outside of you will fix things inside of you.
in some cases they will, I will say. In some cases they will.
Why is this subject close to home for you?
Because I used to believe that. So I struggled a lot. I mean, I'm by all definitions of the word an absolute failure. I failed out of college,
I dropped out of high school.
Finished school at the age of 35 or 36. You know, it took me a long time to kind of get on my feet and figure out what I was doing in my life. And I
like feet.
realized that like the reason that I was screwing up so much is because I always thought that accomplishing something outside of me or achieving some kind of goal would make me happy. And I didn't understand that all of my problems came from me. I also blamed all kinds of things outside of me.
Interesting.
So I blamed circumstances. I would blame my professor is biased. This girl is, she doesn't see the goodness that I have in me. She can't recognize how awesome I am. So I kept on blaming things outside of me instead of.
That's interesting. I've never done that before. I've never blamed other people for my problems. Not in that way, I don't think. So
Accepting responsibility.
Take me from that point onwards. So what happened?
I try to blame myself as much as possible for the problems in my life. And that doesn't mean that I never blame other people. But I try to blame myself as much as possible in a productive way. Easier said than done, am I right? This is actually fucking ridiculous. I try to blame myself as much as possible in my life because if it's my fault, then I can control it. Right? That's my logic. If it's my fault, then I'm able to control this, and I'm able to make it better.
That brings you to sit here today as an accomplished individual, as a doctor, and so on.
So I think my journey starts with failure. So I think we think about failure as a negative thing, but I think that's what actually got me started on my journey.
No, failure is not a great thing, but failing, it's feedback, to be able to do better in the future.
After failing out of college, I went to India and I stayed in a monastery or ashram for about 3 months, and it completely changed the way that I looked at the world. So what I sort of realized is that, kind of like what I was saying, is that, I had assumed that things outside of me were responsible for things inside of me. So as a simple example, I attached my sense of self-worth to getting an A. So when I went to college, I was planning on becoming a doctor. And as any Indian kid wants to do, I wanted to go to Harvard. And so I had sort of all these grand dreams of what I wanted to accomplish in life and how I wanted to be a good force in the world and all this kind of stuff. It's all ego. And so what sort of happened is, even though I wanted all of these things, I assumed that all of that accomplishment would bring me happiness. It's when I went to India that I sort of discovered that no amount of external accomplishment will bring you lasting happiness.
Interesting, because I personally disagree. With my own personal life, I found positivity in the accomplishments that I've made. I'm proud of myself, even though it's kind of gay, for being like an Eagle Scout. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of myself for doing well financially, even though a lot of that's because of you guys who watch me. Proud of myself for finally getting my shit together and being in a stable, healthy, happy relationship. I'm proud of myself for the family connections I have. That's just and it's so hard because there's never going to be one definitive answer. All that's really is happening is that if you're listening to Dr. K right now and you're like, holy fuck, that's me. That could be the most inspiring, powerful, positive thing that you've heard today. And that might help you get your life together. For me, I have different experiences. And so hopefully anything that you hear though will trigger something in you that'll go wow, this fits my puzzle of my life, And
this is what we sort of see. These are the people that I work with now. I'll work with someone like a banker or a doctor or a content creator. And for all of these people, it's once you accomplish your goal, your mind moves the goalposts. So you got promoted to vice president. Now you need to be director. Then you need to be managing director. Then you need to be, there's always more.
I have a level of that. It's when it comes to finance, I'm last year was a rough year because I did the reset in the YouTube, which I needed. I was becoming a shittier content creator. And this year, I'm already on track to outpace the amount of money I earned last year significantly. But I just want more. You know what I mean? I just want more. And God bless my wife, because she's like, you got to be happy with what you have. It's good to be motivated positively, but she's like, you're already doing well. This first month, you're already doing very well. Take it easy, slow it down, take a breath, enjoy your life kind of a thing. It's very helpful as a content creator because sometimes you get too caught up in it and you don't realize how much the downtime can help you as a content creator, learning about yourself and stuff, because there's always going to be ups and downs.
The mind always wants more. So chasing after all of that will never lead to lasting happiness. So once I sort of started to realize that, I kind of gave up all of my desires for accomplishment. And the real paradox there is that as I let go of all of my goals, I started to become more successful. And so instead of trying to be something great, I just focused on, small targets. I sort of focused on my spiritual practice. I tried to become a monk and take vows at the age of 22, and my teachers rejected me. So I said, I'm ready to forsake my life. And they said, you have nothing worth giving up. Your life is meaningless. You have nothing
That's fucked up.
worth giving up. So go back to the United States, rise as high as you can, finish a doctoral degree, actually get something worth giving up. And then at the age of 30, if you still want to take vows, we'll take you.
What situation must you have been in?
I mean, that's fair. That makes sense.
At that point, though, before you went off at 21 years old to that ashram, to be so prepared to give everything up? Because I heard that, reading through your story, that you had addictive behaviors at that point already.
Yeah, so I struggled a lot with video game addiction. So I started playing.
Is that a real addiction? I mean, unironically, I had that addiction. I remember I dropped that. I was a phenomenal student. I was an A student in accelerated classes. I was very intelligent. And my mother, God bless her too, because I was raised by a single mom. she pushed me like incredibly hard. She got whatever I needed. I had a lot of family help, structure to help, very strong family, units, and I was able to do very well despite my circumstances, and then at 16, I stopped taking my Ritalin. I was on medication. I have ADHD. I had like very difficult ADHD. I had a lot of behavioral problems. My mother took me like therapists. They got me on the ADHD medications. It did help me become a more effective, student. But I felt, and that was when I was even younger than that, like probably maybe 8, 9, 10. I don't even remember specifically. I have to ask my mother. And when I was 16, though, I was so tired of feeling how I felt on the meds that I just stopped taking my medication. And I stopped taking my medication, and I felt free, and I started playing World of Warcraft for 12 to 16 hours a day. And like I really spiraled from there. That was a tough thing. That was a tough situation, because I felt free for the first time. So that was difficult to deal with, and then moving forward was a little bit rough. And I've always like really enjoyed video games. I've always been very competitive, and as time went on, I had to work more to make more money, and I played less games, and that helped me get out of that addiction. But then I gained more weight. I feel like it's a transfer addiction. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. Maybe my life is a series of like micro addictions. Nothing crazy. I'm not like a fucking drug addict on the street. Play a little too much video games, eat a little too much food. Maybe jack off a little too much. I don't know, man. It's rough. Sometimes it's like crazy. I'm surprised I am where I am. Fuck.
Playing video games when I was very young. And then in high school, it really started to impact my grades. In college, I was basically playing video games all day long instead of like going to class and stuff like that. Like I remember waking up the morning of my Spanish final. This is my final exam. And then realizing that I like wasn't very prepared for it. So I just turned off my alarm clock and went back to sleep, and therefore guaranteed failure.
Damn.
And so where I was mentally was just in a really bad place. So I had all of these goals and aspirations, and I was so frustrated with myself that I couldn't bring myself to do what I wanted. Right. So I knew that I had to study more. Every single day I would wake up and be like, I have to study more. I have to catch up. I've fallen behind. And so I'd have all of these thoughts, and no matter how much I wanted something, it seemed like my body or my brain would just not listen to me. It wanted the video game more. It wanted something else more. And so what I really was I had no control over my life.
It's interesting. I think it's China that like actually acknowledges video game addiction as like a legitimate thing. And I will say, like, my ex, like, she had a video game addiction where she used to be successful, and then she started playing video games like 12 hours a day, not showering, not doing anything. She became a terrible partner to be with at that point. I wonder how much of it was that, man. That shit'll fucking hit you. And since we don't talk about it, do you really know it's an addiction? Can you really acknowledge it? It's fucking crazy.
I was probably depressed. If I'd seen a psychiatrist, I'm sure I would have gotten diagnosed with something. Brief periods of suicidality, basically waking up at noon every day, playing video games all day long.
I feel that too, man. I feel that too. I don't even internalize it, but I used to not have happy thoughts. I don't want to be explicit. Shit's rough, man. You feel like you hit the bottom of the barrel.
Or like before, I had to play to the point of absolute exhaustion. Because if I put my head on the pillow and I did not pass out, all of the thoughts that I was keeping at bay with the video games would come rushing back about how I'm ruining my life day after day after day after day. And I was just sort of sinking deeper and deeper and like falling into a pit that I could not climb out of.
So the ashram in India tells you that you can't give up your life. What happened then? And why did you specialize in psychiatry?
So
I feel like the only good, like, mental health professionals, we'll say, are people that are fucked up in the head. I don't understand how you could ever be good at mental health counseling if you haven't had some shit happen. That's why my wife is an excellent mental health advisor. She's phenomenal. I respect my wife so much. I'm a little emotional today, guys, since we're opening up. So I'm probably going to gush about my wife a little too much. So if you don't like it, eat my ass. But that's like the best. That's like the best person, because there's so many experiences you have in your life that like, you just can't communicate. How do you communicate to somebody that, I don't know, that you just couldn't shower that day? I know that sounds it's fucking cringe, but you just couldn't bring yourself to it. So a normal person would be like, dude, that's disgusting. Because it was fucking disgusting. How do you communicate that? You got to be fucked up in the head to understand that. You got to be a fundamentally flawed individual to be able to talk about something like that.
When I went to med school, when I was in med school, I still had ego. I still have ego now, but so I was going to like combine Eastern medicine and sort of focus on evidence-based complementary and alternative medicine. And I was going to be an oncologist and be a real doctor and save lives. But what I really found is that in med school, a couple of things. One is my favorite organ was the mind. So what I fell in love with
Mine's my penis.
in India
Actually, my wife's boobs.
was the mind and sort of the internal sense of self
Specifically your nipples.
and all this kind of stuff. So I really liked that. And then I
Areolas.
think that my people were in psychiatry. So the other thing that happened is I was trying to decide between internal medicine and oncology and psychiatry. And so one of my mentors in med school told me, like, do this. So do 1 month of each and then just ask yourself, which one do you enjoy more? So on the one hand, when I was thinking about oncology, this was also chasing a desire, right? I had this idea that I wanted to be a real doctor, right? Because I was like, oh, I want to cure cancer. Like, that's like, let's be like a real solid doctor and do that. And then what I noticed was that now what internal medicine has become is very like sitting in front of a computer. So when you work in a hospital, like 8 hours of the day, I'm sitting in front of a computer and you spend very little time with your patients. And then over time, I started to realize that like psychiatry is the only field.
My mother-in-law, she's a nurse for like kids that are fucked up, man. Like kids that have like horror, like tragic illnesses that are probably going to pass soon. And I could never do something like that. The mental fortitude you have to like, see kids like, go there and pass away because of like terrible life circumstances. That's crazy, man. That's rough. I'm truly blessed to have a job where I rot my brain every day playing a fucking video game and listening to a video, because the real world, man, will eat you up.
Field of medicine that we're losing the war in. So if you look at medical outcomes for things like bypass surgery and stuff like that, those are really good. And this is really insane to really think about. So we can take your body, Steven, and we can give you a heart from a different human being. We can give you a kidney from a different human being. We can give you a liver from a different human being. If you have a part of your body that doesn't work, we can literally rip it out of you, stick in a new one, and you will survive.
Yeah, but you can't get a new brain.
So outcomes in every field of medicine are improving except for mental health. So mental health is the one area where addictions are getting worse, depression is getting worse, suicidality is getting worse. And this is in spite of advances in neuroscience. So something has happened where we've missed something about the mind. And everyone is getting sicker. So like this,
I think, like I said before, I think it's the internet, like in a lot of different ways, and less social interaction and more seeing the craziest things that are happening in the world, always, all the time.
this was the problem that really attracted me. And this isn't about my desire. This is sort of where we introduce the concept of dharma or duty. So I recognize that I'm lucky. I'm this kid who got to spend 7 years studying to become a monk in India. So I traveled back and forth, but I spent my summers there. So I had this really unique perspective. And then I got to train at Harvard Medical School. And what am I supposed to do with this knowledge, right? Like this is 15 years that I've devoted to understanding how human beings work. And like, I had this very kind of, chic private practice in Boston where I worked with very, very successful people and helped them achieve. And then I sort of realized like, that's not what I'm here for, right? So I've gotten 15 years to learn all of this stuff. And like, there's no shortage of people lining up to help CEOs with their mental health. There's absolutely a shortage of people helping 25-year-old incels who are like on the internet, who everyone wants to throw in jail because they're very hateful and misogynistic and things like that.
Yeah, that's true.
So I sort of realized that like, okay, like this is what I'm supposed to do. So I'm going to do it.
It's interesting because like we have these conversations from a sociological perspective. Excuse me, I'm fucking dumb. And in 2020, they centralized heavily around like a lot of black people, disenfranchised black Americans specifically, who are committing crimes because of the history of systemic racism that puts them in a place that denies them opportunity and money and oppresses them by the police in different ways, shapes, and forms. Which is a good thing to acknowledge, but it's like why don't we acknowledge those stinky incels who grow up socially detached from the entire world. A lot of them aren't particularly attractive. Like you're not seeing like a 6'4" incel. They're born maybe too short or too this or too that, or they have this problem, or they don't have a dad, or they don't have a mom, or they have this. I'm not saying feel as bad as for them as anybody else. I'm just saying like we never really focus on that. We never be like, oh yeah, like that is kind of a problem. Like who's going to help them out?
Okay, so I've got a big question.
And who would help you if we had fucking, if we had some kind of free, like Medicare for all or some kind of universal health care, maybe people could get the therapist they need.
But before just to tee up that big question, you said you had this practice in Boston where you're working with sort of high profile individuals, etc. What is the full spectrum of individuals that you've spent time working with on a one-on-one basis or through your practice?
I worked with people out of MIT, incubators, CEOs, entrepreneurs, things like that. It's a lot of high performance people, but then I've also worked with like losers, let's say. So this is also more intensely. This is everything from 25-year-old kid who's living in his mom's basement playing video games all day to people who are even homeless. So I worked with like basically like the whole spectrum.
I live in my mom's attic.
And yeah.
I also worked pretty much from 20 on. I had like 2 jobs. Life hit me pretty hard. My mother was incredible, but got to a certain point where she's like, you need to go get a job and you need to start paying rent and you need to start paying for your own food and stuff. And it helped. It did help slowly push me to a spot where I did better. I got lucky getting a job with my uncle at a bus company. I didn't work with him, but like, he worked there. So I was able to do something with that. I had so many opportunities in my life that like were just handed to me that I did not deserve. You know, I truly am so lucky. You know,
You used the word losers there, and you did a little air quotes for anyone that can't see you right now. I'm really interested when you talked about incels as well, whether the way
I think he said losers so that like everybody else will understand what he's talking about. You know what I mean?
society is and the way that we're heading in terms of clarity over what it is to be a man has had any impact on those people that you refer to as incels. Like I'm like, because we now have this digital world that we can live our lives in as a distraction from the real world, and there's now more confusion than ever over what it is to be a man and the role of a man in a, and then we look at the stats around suicidality, and I think in Europe the biggest killer of men under the age of 45 is themselves currently. Is the shifting idea of what it is to be a man having an impact on people's sense of self and their purpose?
100%. So
I feel like for me, what it means to be, it's so hard to articulate every aspect of what it means to be a man, but I will tell you, I feel like, and I am a man, it's so hard to be a man. You guys are going to get mad at me, but without having a good woman. I think men have the power to shape the world and shift the world, and there are women who can too, but I think a lot of men have this sense of purpose of changing and shifting the world from a macro setting of, trying to conquer and change and shift and shape. Whereas I feel like women have the exact same general motivation, but for men. And like my wife has shifted me and changed me and shaped me in such a way. I know you guys are probably, oh, you're fucking gay, whatever. But in a way where like I'm finally almost proud of myself. You know what I mean? Like a real way, a meaningful way. And it's like, damn, like it's so hard to communicate. Like what a positive. I feel like men need a good woman, generally speaking. Like I said, there are women who have the same desire. I'm not saying women can't have that desire. I'm not saying men can't fulfill that feminine role, But there's something so fucking powerful about it, bro. Like that's the I can fix him. Yes, the I can fix him. The women going, I can fix him. Like that's the embodiment of what I'm talking about. Men don't go, I can fix her. Women are like, I can fix him. I can fix him. It's something crazy. And like, you know what? I make fun of my wife for it because I was a fucking train wreck when she met me. But she fixed me. You know what I mean? And it's like, damn. It's like, goddamn. Like, and I feel like that's the problem with this fucking red pill movement. And it's like, oh, women are bad, you don't need a woman. Yes, you do, motherfucker. You need the right woman, which is hard to find. But you do. You need a woman. Yes, you do. You need a partner. You need a femininity, a strong masculine presence. Boy, girl, non-binary, whatever. You need a strong feminine presence there too, or you are going to fail emphatically. You're going to fail in some aspect of your life. Even if you're like, I made a lot of money. Yeah, okay, but do you love yourself? Do you think you made a lot of money having a positive impact on the world? Like, are you helping people or are you just siphoning shit? Like, what are you doing that's productive? Like, are you proud of yourself for what you're doing? It's just, there's so many questions that I can't answer. You got to answer for yourself.
There's a crisis that's going on in men, and people think that this is new, but I don't think it's new. It's always been there. So if you look at even 50, 60 years ago, 80% of suicides are still going to be men. So historically, men have been killing themselves for like 100 years and no one's been paying attention. We're just noticing now because the problem seems to be getting worse. So there's a couple of things that are really interesting to understand. So one is that if we look at what
for gay, you just need like I said, masculine, feminine more than man, woman,
technology is doing to our brains. The first thing that it's doing is it is externalizing our attention. So if you look back, like let's say 1,000 years ago, as human beings, we spent a lot more time with ourselves. So let's say that you and I go out hunting. And then let's say you shoot an arrow at a deer and you miss. And then I shoot an arrow at a deer and I hit. So in this moment, I'm superior to you. And then we pick up the deer and we're carrying it back. And then we have about 2 or 3 hours to take that emotional insult and we kind of process it. We just give our mind space to process it, which it does automatically. Now, if you look at what happens in people's days, they don't actually have any time to process what happens to them because we are so constantly distracted by external things. So I don't know if you're like this, but I was in this point where I was idiotically efficient. So I would wake up in the morning and I would listen to a podcast while I'm like doing my exercise or whatever. And then even when I'm cooking, I'm listening to a lecture. And then like when I'm walking to the train, I have earbuds in and I'm listening to a lecture there. On the train, I'm reading. I wanted my life to be completely efficient. I didn't want to waste a single moment.
It's so stimulating. It's so interesting because like there's moments where, especially as a content creator, it's like something will happen and I'm like, I want to respond. Boom, I gotta do this. And I get very, I poise myself to like instantly respond, instantly. And I can because this is how the internet works now. You have the instant ability to respond to something. And it's like, fuck, if I had only sat back for 5, 10, 20 minutes, an hour, I could realize that, like, you know what, maybe I don't need to respond, or maybe there's a better way to respond. We have such an easy way to engage with our impulsivities nowadays because of the internet. It's like you can act on a fucking whim. It's like, oh, that wasn't good.
I literally listen to the news in the shower. It's
right. So we don't want to waste time. And so if you really think about it, where's the attention of your mind? Your mind is pointed outside of you. And so then what happens is once we do not pay attention to ourselves, we lose sight of our internal signals. Literally in the same way that if you raise a child in a dark cave, the photoreceptors in their eyes won't develop. They will atrophy. So anything that the mind does not get access to will start to atrophy. If I don't practice Spanish, I'm going to forget Spanish. The brain is a very efficient organ. So as we externalize our attention, we lose sight of our internal signals. We don't know who we are anymore. And now if I don't know who I am, how do I figure out who I'm supposed to be? I pay attention to the outside. Where are the answers? They're on the outside. So this person is talking about masculinity. This person is talking about what it means to be a man. This person is talking about what it means to be a man. And now since I don't have any internal source of information, I'm trying to figure out what it means to be a man from the outside world. And this is when men get truly fucked. Because what it means to be a man, we are getting all kinds of mixed signals. So on the one hand, it means being physically fit. On the other hand, it means being a provider. On one hand, it means having sex with as many women as you can find.
For me, I feel like I'm really thinking about it. Everybody needs a moral philosophy and code to be able to push them forward and make them a better, more productive person. For me, what it means to be a man is my motivator. What it means to be a man to me is to appreciate and take care of my wife, to focus on family, to better myself physically, financially, emotionally, mentally, through different ways. Going to the gym has been a very positive mental and physical health thing onto me. These are all the things that it means. And then what does it mean to take care of your family and my wife? It means that it means that maybe I cook dinner for my wife when she's having a late day, or just in general to make her happy, or maybe I buy her something, or maybe I do the laundry, or maybe someone else in my family is going through a rough time with their partner, and so I'll do something. Or maybe on like Valentine's Day, I go out and I put together a nice little basket, Valentine's Day basket for a bunch of the women in my family. Little reminders of thank yous. And the other day I helped my Bobshi go home from like a wedding, my grandmother. And she was like, oh, thank you so much. And it was like, there's no need to thank me. I told her, I was like, you raised me. Like, this is the least I can do. These are the things that really motivate me as a person. And I feel like for me as a man, I'm very masculine. I'm 6'4". I have a lot of testosterone. That resonates with me. But you might be a woman, or maybe you're a guy who's not as masculine, which is not a bad thing. And maybe what it means to be a good person would be very resonating with you. Yeah, call my mom once a week. For real, I do. I see her once a week. It's kind of up to you to decide what you want your moral ethics to be. Maybe being a Christian or a Muslim is what motivates you. Everybody will be a little different, but you got to figure out your moral code. And I prescribe it to myself. I just think everybody needs a solid, positive moral structure that pushes you in the right direction as a human being. That's what you need. It doesn't really matter what it is, as long as you're a productive member of society. My wife doesn't put a particularly high amount of value in what it means to be a woman in the way that I put a value into what it means to be a man. But she puts a tremendous amount of value in what it means to be a wife, or what it means to be like a worker, a good worker at her job, because she has a very positively impactful job for society. Everybody's going to be different. You kind of have to find your philosophy.
On the other hand, it means having sex with just one woman and being a really solid man and being a good father. And then there's also people telling us that being a man means that you're shit, right? That you're toxic, that your testosterone level makes you violent, that you're evil, that you're privileged, that there's a patriarchy, all this kind of stuff. So we're getting
and she's on my hat.
All this information from the outside about what it means to be a man. And so there are all kinds of interesting ramifications of this. So men in today's society are not allowed to complain. So if you complain and you're a successful person or a privileged person, everyone is going to think you're arrogant. Everyone is going to think, oh my God, who's this fucking guy? This guy doesn't know what my life is like. How does he have any right to complain? And even your mind will tell you this. You'll look at these people and you'll be like, yeah, I don't have a right to complain. But now we need to stop for a second and think about what it does to your psychology when you as a human being are not allowed to articulate your suffering. I've worked with people who've grown up in abusive households where children will say to their parents, mommy, daddy, I'm hurting. And
thank you so much for the small gut particle, by the way. Thank you, brother.
Parent smacks him across the face. How dare you? You're so lucky. You don't realize the sacrifices I make for you. It's how to articulate your suffering. I've worked with people who've grown up in abusive households where children will say to their parents, mommy, daddy, I'm hurting. And the parent smacks him across the face. How dare you? You're so lucky. You don't realize
probably learned it from their parents.
Sacrifices I make for you. It's traumatizing to the child when they say, I am suffering and no one listens.
It's crazy. My mother never did that. My mother used to hit me. My mother used to hit me a good amount when I was a bad kid. But I was so fortunate because when my mother loved me and she took me to therapy and we found a good therapist. And I remember I can't remember the time, but I remember the feeling when my mom just stopped hitting me one day after we went to therapy. And we talked about it a few years later. My mom was just like, the therapist told me to stop hitting you because it wasn't helping. You know what I mean? And my mother's old. My mother's in her 60s. And that's what she learned. I have food in my beard? Fuck. That's not very good. And she's in her 60s. And that's what she learned. And the therapist said it one time. You got to stop hitting your kid. And she instantly stopped. Right? So it's so interesting. My mother always cared about me. You know what I mean? I always knew my mom cared about me. I mean, she worked she worked 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week. She always made time on her days off to, help push me through like the Boy Scouts and the Cub Scouts. Sounds cringe, but it was very positive for me. And she did the best that she could. You know what I mean? So I've never felt unloved. I felt like I could have seen my mommy more. I felt like I could have had a father. That would have been nice. But my mom never ignored me. She's a very blunt woman. She's a very masculine woman. But she never ignored my feelings. You know what I mean? So I'm very lucky in that respect. You know what I mean? So
This is what we're doing to the generation of men.
I've never been resentful of my mother. You know?
People are saying, I'm suffering. For 100 years, men have been killing themselves. 80% of suicides are men. The most dangerous thing for a man under 45 is themselves. And these people have been literally killing themselves because no one has been listening to them. So in the same way that you grow up with as a child in a household that's abusive, where no one takes you seriously, no one listens to your suffering, and now we even have successful men who are not allowed to complain. So the psychological impact is the same. Anytime you have a human being who is suffering in some way and they cannot find connection with another human being, they cannot find compassion with another human being, that person is going to feel isolated. And if you look at the statistics on suicide, it's very interesting. So the number one thing that correlates with male suicide is not depression. And this is super scary. There's one study I saw recently that suggests that 50% of men who kill themselves have no history or evidence of mental illness. And this, I believe the statistic in my clinical practice because I know what depression looks like. I know what bipolar disorder looks like. And half the men that I've worked with, at least, are not actually mentally ill. See, mental illness means a pathology of the mind, which means that the mind is malfunctioning. Most of the suicidal men that I work with, their mind isn't malfunctioning. They genuinely have a life that is no longer worth living. They're looking at things and objectively realizing that there's no way out of the situation.
I would say, I mean, I guess he knows better than me, but I wouldn't say objectively. But I get what you're saying. They lose that meaning in life, and sometimes it's hard to derive that meaning out of your life, man. It's rough. You really got to find some. I mean, that's I'm not going to get into the political talks, but there's that conversation's there.
So they turn to suicide. So I know it's kind of like a very controversial statement, but I think that's what my clinical practice has shown, and there's some research to even back that up. So if we sort of look at what's going on with men, we're sort of, they have nowhere to turn to. And the number one thing that correlates with it is not mental illness, but is a sense of thwarted belongingness. So this is kind of like multivariate regression analysis. But basically what happens is what causes people to kill themselves is they try to connect with others and they get rejected. So it's specifically a very specific research term called thwarted belongingness. So I try to belong to a group, and that group, or multiple groups usually, will thwart my attempts to join the tribe, to join the community. And this is what actually correlates a lot with suicidality. So what's going on with men right now is that we really don't allow them to suffer, because then you're not manly. And we're so externalized with our attention that we're not connecting with ourselves. And so we're looking to other people to tell us what it means to be a man. But that may or may not work for you.
I think also people don't have fucking fathers in their goddamn houses anymore, which makes it difficult to figure out what it means to be a man. It's so interesting. But ideally, we don't live in an ideal world, but ideally we don't need anybody to tell us what it means to be a real man. Right? We should have our fathers to be able to tell us what it means to be a real man, and for women to show us what it means to be treated well by a man. But fathers are leaving the households for multiple reasons, right? And that, and regardless of why that's happening, it's happening, and that's having a negative impact on a lot of young people in general. It's just kind of throwing things around because you don't have a father as a man to teach you how to be a man. And you don't have a father as a woman teach you how you should be treated by a man. So your expectations of what a man should give you in a relationship are all over the fucking place because you don't know. You're watching a drama on TV of that's, oh my God. You're taking the movie Tangled too seriously. And it's as a man, you get no feedback. And as a woman, you give shit feedback because of a shit man in your life that didn't want to be there for you. And that's why I think now it's more important than ever as a man, as a person, but as a man, to try to be a positive male role model to anybody that you can be, because you don't know who needs it. You really don't know who needs it. You don't have to be the most prolific role model. If you're a gym teacher, there are some things that you could do as a gym teacher to have a positive impact, or a regular teacher, and now I feel fucking terrible for teachers now, because teachers now, especially male teachers, are expected to have more of an impact. God damn it. more of an impact on raising their fucking kid on other people's goddamn kids because their fucking fathers aren't there. So now they're not just teaching math anymore. They gotta sit here and teach what it means to be a man. It's crazy. So there's a lot of moving parts.
Right? That may have been what worked for them. So then
I got lucky. I had my uncle, I had my Jaji, very lucky. Scoutmaster. A lot of positive male role models. That's one of the things that frustrates me when you see people in the red pill sphere that talk about how, like, oh, it's stupid to raise another kid's, another kid, a kid with another big kid when you're another man's baby. That's what they say. Jeez, I couldn't articulate that very well. And it's like, if you don't want to do that, you don't have to, But to say it's a shame in that, I think is pathetic. I think it's a very brave, powerful, bold thing to have no sense of responsibility for someone and still take on a sense of responsibility for that person. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's one thing to just be like, yeah, that's not for me. I respect that. It's another thing to say that nobody should do it. I don't respect that. You're destructive. You're destructive to everybody. So
we get into this problem where we're disconnected from ourselves, and then like the world doesn't accept us. We're not allowed to suffer, and that's what creates the problem.
What is the remedy to this?
So I think the first thing is we must reconnect with ourselves, right? So when you're kind of saying like, why does everyone think, oh, I need to like achieve this, I need to make this money and things like that. Where did you learn that you should do all that? You learned all that from the outside. Instagram, right? So we get fed all of these ideas because if you look at all these influencers, what are they doing? They're never crying. They're smiling. Some of them will even pay very attractive women to take pictures with them.
Well, right? That's true. They're showing you the best of their life at all times, and now you're comparing it, and you're like, why am I not happy? Where's all my pussy?
Them are crying, but they're crying and uploading it for ulterior motives, right?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of them are genuinely suffering too. But then it's also like, there's
but there are people who will cry on the internet for attention, and then it makes you then it kind of makes you feel, if you've never seen somebody cry productively or positively, and all you're seeing are people crying on the internet for attention, that warps your sense of what it means to cry. You're seeing some fucking person crying about how they were tickled in the same way that you might have heard another woman cry about how they were violently assaulted. And you're like, what the fuck? And I can't remember think of the word I'm looking for, but it desensitizes you. Makes you skeptical. Makes you go, what the fuck is going on here? It's crazy.
It's all kinds of weird stuff going on. So one thing is like people say that we don't allow men to be emotional nowadays, but people say, oh, men are allowed to cry. So this is something that
you got to acknowledge that because you don't want to be too skeptical of crying. You know what I mean? Especially when you got a loved one in your life. For me, I see people cry on the internet, and I'm usually like, oh, Jesus. But when I see my wife cry, I know that's real. Because my wife is a real person.
Experience even in my marriage where we allow men to cry, but we don't allow men to be angry. But why is it are men no longer allowed to be angry? Just think about it for a second.
Oh, it's true. Like, it's okay for a man to cry. Kidding, gay. No, I'm just kidding. But men don't usually manifest. My wife will get angry, or when my wife feels emotions, she manifests her emotions in crying. Sometimes I manifest my emotions in anger. Sometimes I'm not proud of it, but it happens. I get angry. I have anger problems. I get angry at shit. That's just like, apparently part of that's because of my ADHD. Part of that's because of the way I was raised. Part of that's because of this. Part of that we can acknowledge different ways why, but that's what it is. And so it's like, how do I manage that? And it's like, how do I manage? And it's just always trying to be so aware of that. So like when I get angry now, we got protocols. I just kind of get quiet and I stay to myself, and I usually need like an hour when I get really angry, and I just sit by myself, and it's not uncommon for me after about an hour to call my wife or to talk to my wife and express my feelings and be like, I felt this way, but I'm sorry for expressing it this way, and then we have a productive conversation. That shit ain't easy. But God bless my wife, she lets me be angry. In the same way, she'll start crying to me after something happens, and I let her cry to me. That's really what you got to do.
So anger is just a completely normal emotion, right? But if I'm in a situation where I'm in an argument with my wife and I feel emotion A and I express emotion A and she feels emotion B and she expresses emotion B, these two things should be equal, right? We as both human beings get to express what we feel. Yeah. Now, in the case of me expressing,
as long as you don't hurt anybody,
anger, and her expressing sadness, she's crying and I'm yelling. Suddenly, I become a villain.
It's so interesting. I saw a viral tweet yesterday.
Yeah, as long as you're not like being physically, there needs to be a productive conversation about like how much yelling is appropriate. Basically, you know what I mean. You should never let any of your emotions get out of control. The problem is that like the default female, or woman's go-to is to cry. And like crying generally isn't very destructive. You know, you fucking cry really bad, you might hyperventilate. But as a man, or as a person in general, but as a man, you start getting angry and you can destroy things. You know what I mean? You can destroy physical thing. I remember when I was young, you know, I was very young, I was a very angry kid. I used to slam my fucking head into walls. This isn't something I'm proud to talk about. I don't like talking about that. You know, I used to break shit. I used to punch holes in screens and stuff. And it's like, as I got older, I got better at managing it. I don't think that I was ever good at managing it. I still don't even think I'm perfect at managing it, but until now where I'm like, oh shit, you know, I'm finally at a spot where it's like, I haven't broken things in years. And that sounds like what a bars on the floor, you know? But I'm like, wow, you know what? I've been doing better. And a lot of it, again, it's my wife, you know, she gives me a reason to be happy and thankful. You know, because that's another thing too. I've been in super stressful scenarios where I'm the primary breadwinner. The other person I'm with isn't really working at all. They're taking advantage of me. I'm working 60 hours a week. I'm paying for them to do this and do that. And they're not motivated in their life and they don't respect me and they're spending my money and they're stealing my credit card and they're stealing my this. And it's like, it all builds up and then you get angry and then, you know, you end up having a disproportionate response, you know? That's the terrible thing about anger. That's the interesting thing about anger problems is that when you have an anger problem, your anger existing is usually justified, but the proportionality of your anger is not. You know what I mean? And if you just suppress it like I used to, it doesn't help. And you end up blowing up over something stupid. It's like you get picked 50 times and you don't do anything. And then 51, something small. And you go off the fucking deep end. And it's probably confusing to the person that you're with because the feedback you've been giving is if they do something to you, you don't care. You let it go. It's not a big deal. And then they do that same thing for, you know, again, for the 20th time. And all of a sudden you lose your shit. And, you know, it's just a very toxic, catastrophic way to engage in a relationship. It's hard, you know? It's a difficult thing. It's, you know, it's always a dance between two different people. I think anybody has the ability to be a great person or a bad person, you know, and a lot of that depends on the boundaries that are set by the people in your life. You know, so you got to set good boundaries, strong boundaries. So this way, like, because that's what keeps you a good person. You know, if anybody that's allowed to be left to their own devices is going to turn into a fucking goblin. You know, so you got to really be aware of that, the boundaries that other people set for you, but then boundaries you also set. Because I need very strong boundaries to be set by my wife. You know, I grew up with incredibly strong boundaries, and like if I'm with somebody that's like very passive, I'm gonna steamroll them on accident. It's not my fucking fault. I mean, it is, but it's, you know, I'm not doing it on purpose. I have a very strong personality. You know, so you know that's another aspect of learning about yourself to know what you need. So you can find like the right person for you.
It was someone Googling, my wife is yelling at me, what should I do? And then my husband is yelling at me, what should I do? When they Googled, my husband is yelling at me, what should I do? Domestic violence helpline comes up as like a Google pop-up. When you Google, my wife is yelling at me, what should I do? Nothing comes up.
Yeah.
Because obviously, as you said, in the case of villainization, I know that most domestic violence comes from men, but it's interesting that we see.
It's my wife. Yeah, I don't know if it's most domestic violence or if it's most like violent domestic violence. You know, women will sometimes be physically aggressive too, but usually they're not as physically strong as the man they're being aggressive towards. And so it's like the impact is not even close to, you know, it's not even close to the impact that you can have, the negative impact that you can have.
We interpret the emotions entirely differently because of that.
Absolutely, right? So we as a society will say like, oh, men need to be in touch with their emotions, but not anger. And then this is what really screws men. Because as men, we are socialized and conditioned to only feel anger. This is the only emotion you're allowed to feel as a man growing up. And this is the one emotion that gets demonized when you're older. So I'll give you a simple example. So like I used to get bullied a lot, right? So when I get bullied in school, like what am I supposed to do, Stephen?
In school, well, it depends if you can fight back.
Absolutely, right? It's fighting back. Like you didn't say talk to the teacher. You didn't say
fighting back, which by the way isn't necessarily a bad thing depending on how you do it.
Ask for help. You didn't say cry about it, because if I cry about it, what's going to happen, Stephen?
You're going to get bullied more.
Absolutely. So we turn every emotion. So men experience anger as something called an umbrella emotion. We literally suppress and are conditioned to suppress all other emotions except for anger. And then if you talk to men about their experience of life, anger is always the first thing that comes out of their mouth. Someone breaks up with you, how do you feel?
I feel like I got a very good I got very lucky because I'm also a very tall person, which sounds stupid, but Fuck, I don't even know where I was going to go with this one. I think I was going to go with people take my anger more seriously, or I didn't have like compounding issues of people like bullying me additionally for being tall. You know what I mean? I don't really know the point I was actually going to make. I fucking lost my train of thought.
About it. Do you feel ashamed? No, that's not what we say. I feel pissed off. How could she do this to me? And then we vent that anger on the internet, and then this turns into misogyny, right? And then we get demonized for it. And it's not that there isn't.
That's true too. I never thought about like men just being impulsive and being like, I fucking hate women because this woman treated me like shit, which is a normal response to have, by the way. My wife hates men, you know, but she doesn't hate men. You know what I mean? It's like that fucking I'm angry, fuck men kind of a thing. But then you say it online and you instantly get that feedback, and it's never productive feedback, you know?
We should be harshly judged if we act on those kinds of emotions. I'm not saying that that's the case. But what we also need to consider is that the men who are saying these kinds of toxic things are saying that for a reason. This is because of their upbringing. This is because of the world that they lived in, right? So we're conditioned to only experience anger. Even sadness gets turned into anger. Shame gets turned into anger. Fear gets turned into anger.
True.
Right? So if I'm afraid of something happening, what do I need? I man up. Get angry, right? Like, let's go, son. Let's go.
That's true, because, you know, when you're afraid, you have to get angry. It's like you know, let's say there's a survival scenario going on, and like it's stupid little things, but sometimes I get afraid around the house. I think I hear a fucking noise. What do? You get angry, because if you're angry, you can get up and beat the shit out of whatever demons in the house. But if you're afraid, you can't do that. So it's almost like a positive thing of like, yeah, it's time to get angry, bitch. You know,
this is the emotion that we tap into to overcome fear. So we don't feel any of those other emotions, and we're left.
You feel like a lot of women have a more justifiable reason to say that, though. I don't know if I agree with that. Like, I think women and men have just as much of a justifiable reason to hate the other sex. It's just that it's more okay for women to express it. You know, and I know that there's a lot of sexual assault going on. So women have that, of course. But I feel like for men, it's maybe not, it's different. And we don't talk about it, you know? And men aren't encouraged to talk about it as much. You know, you can go online nowadays as a woman. And by the way, I'm not saying that women are bad or anything. But you can go online nowadays as a woman and be like, oh, my ex was abusive all the time. You know? But when the response is like, you know, well, what did you do? It's like, oh, well, I was fucking nothing. I just took all of his fucking money, smoked weed all day, and didn't appreciate anything about him. And it's like, you know, nobody cares about, whatever, you're not a big deal. But, oh, well, you were abusive? Well, what? And it's like, you know, what about what you know, what is the definition of abuse? And like how much of it was reactive abuse, or was it even abusive? Or like, is that word getting in the way of the conversation about what happened? You know? It's just like, what the fuck's going on? I don't know. We're not having productive conversations about things.
Only feeling
there's no red pill arc incoming. I'm literally with the fucking love of my life. I will never turn against women. I'm not a fucking loser coward unless my wife passes away, and then that's it for me. I'm out of here. I'm not staying here anymore, so I'm never turning red pill. It's just the acknowledgement of like men's problems, man.
Anger.
At the very heart of aggression, I had someone say to me once that at the very
What are the hearts in the chat, dude? They just look nice.
heart of aggression is some kind of insecurity. But for men, when they encounter that insecurity, they only know how to sort of manifest it as aggression.
So I wouldn't agree with the first thing, that at the heart of all anger is insecurity, but I would absolutely agree with the second thing, that the only way we know how to respond is with anger. Because
here's the exact quote, I just found it. The source of aggression is insecurity. As we are unconsciously aware that our position in life is never secure, people feel increasingly insecure and helpless, so they will be increasingly aggressive and confrontational at a personal and a social level.
That's interesting. I don't know.
So
I have to think about it. Some of these things I have to think about.
Let's tunnel down into that for a second. Okay, so I think that is true on some level, but also I would disagree. So the first thing is that we have parts of our brain, even animals feel anger. But I think that like when two dogs are fighting over territory, I don't think that that's born of some kind of identity of insecurity, right? So if we really look at like the evolutionary purpose of anger, this is my opinion, is that anger is the emotion that we feel to protect our territory. It's a protective emotion. So if I slap you across the face, what's the first thing that you're going to feel? It's going to be anger. So if I insult you, you're going to feel angry.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you would want to have a protective response to fight back.
Fascinating the way that it works. So anger causes our thoughts to be faster. Anger causes our peripheral vision to collapse to 30 degrees. So I only see what's in front of me. And it also makes me less sensitive to pain. So like my nociceptors will actually like start to be suppressed when I feel angry. Right?
Which all sounds like a very positive thing when you're in like almost like some kind of a survival scenario. This is a very positive thing. You know, like, you know, it narrows your scope down to we need to deal with this right now. I wonder, you know, and listen, I had a very masculine mom and it was very effective management, but you know, there's some times where maybe this is sexist, but I feel like maybe women aren't necessarily always as good at managing things in the same way as men. And I wonder if it's because men get angry, or when you get angry, you know, you go from there's 10 things going on at once, we got to deal with them, to like, this is the one issue. And it's like, this is what we have to do. So you get a little bit angry, but productive anger, where it's like, yeah, we have this problem. This is the primary source of issue. We have to take care of this first. And then maybe women are able to sit back and kind of consider more options more often in a more balanced way because they don't have as much of that anger response. And so they're able to have like a nice positive combination of men and women of how to tackle problems, which in my relationship has always been the case, I feel like, with my wife, because we'll have a conversation about something and then like I'll be like, this is what I need to do for this. And sometimes she's like, no, you should do this. And then sometimes I go through with it, but it's like that feedback is interesting. It's like, I never thought of it like that. It's like, oh shit. I wonder if there's something there. I don't know.
So if I get into a fight, I'm going to feel it tomorrow, but like while I'm getting hit, I'm not going to feel it. So I don't think it's born of all insecurity. I think anger is simply an evolutionary response. It's something that we experience to protect ourselves. That's why we feel angry, right? So if I attack baby bear, mama bear is going to come out angry. So it's really a protective emotion. Now, I agree with the second part of the statement 100%, that when we feel insecure, especially as men, the only way we are taught to deal with our problems is through anger, right? So if I'm feeling insecure, if I'm feeling ashamed of myself, someone's bullying me, what do? I put them in their place, right? I don't try to make peace. I don't complain to someone because no one's going to take me seriously, right? I have to stand up for myself.
So we've got the first point there about how we remedy this challenge, which is about self-expression, more self-expression. That's what I heard.
Not self-expression, introspection.
Introspection, getting to know ourselves.
Right? So it's very simple. So if you look at your idea of what it means to be a man, what percentage of that idea comes outside of you? And what
a lot of it comes outside of me, let me tell you.
percentage of that idea comes from within you?
About 90% comes from outside of me.
And that's why 90% of people, we're 90% fucked. Right? So, and if you look at, I'm sure you know this, and you've probably done this too, if you look at where is the goodness in your life, where does it come from, Stephen? It doesn't come from what other people have told you. They may have told you something, but then you looked within yourself and then you found that to be true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. I think what he's trying to say, and that's what I was saying before, like you're always going to intake information and then some of it will make different levels of sense to you and you'll be able to apply them differently to yourself based on whatever's going on in your life,
The goodness in you, the motivation, the really good motivation in you, not chasing things, but the duty that you have, everything that you really strive for, all that good stuff comes from inside you. And the problem is that we live in a world that pulls our attention away from ourselves.
What do you think of Andrew Tateism then?
So as a
he's not a man. I mean, when you're a sex trafficking rapist, you're obviously not a man.
general rule, I don't comment on people that I don't speak to.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me the features.
He also can't, or else he'll lose credibility to young men who might be trying to shift away from Andrew Tate.
Of what you're talking about.
Okay, so the recent wave of internet masculine influencers who have like Bugattis and lots of women and sports cars, and there's many of them. And they seem to be resonant for some kind of reason. That are kind of saying that the way to be a man is to have loads of money, lots of women, these kind of cars, physical strength, and there's just a huge sort of generation of young, typically men, that are now disciples of that religion.
Yeah. So
what's interesting? There was something that Ben Shapiro said on a conversation with Lex Friedman that really made me go like, wow. Like this is something that I internalized as a core principle of what it means to be a man for me. And what Ben said was so interesting. He said we don't need is something along the lines of how I interpret it and I express it is it's easy to be a great man, but it's hard to be a good man. And it's like, what is a great man? Oh, a great man is a guy who has the Bugatti, who has all the money, who gets all the women, who gets all of this, who gets all of that. But the good man is the one that nurtures his family and his friends and his wife and his kids, and he works hard to be a good person. He doesn't take the shortcuts to get as rich as possible by stepping on as many people as possible. He just tries to do things the right way. And it was like that really stuck with me of like, wow, like what a beautiful thing, because I feel like we've all probably been in something in our life where we've said, I could do this and I can get this faster. But I feel like we've also done that before and we've been like, oh, the ramifications were tremendously bad, for somebody, either for yourself or for somebody else. And it's like, maybe sometimes we just need to do the right thing, be very positive, setting a positive example for other people in society as well. So
I think if you dislike that toxic masculinity, what we need to understand is it's the people who hate that toxic masculinity that are driving these people towards it. So I know this is kind of crazy. So what's happened is this has grown, right? And as it's grown, what have we done? We've demonized these people. We've said these people are bad. And as we demonize them, what's happened? They've grown stronger. So this is something that's very important to understand. If you are a man and you say, I am suffering today, what is the response that you're going to
get? Shut up.
My wife will give me kisses. That's a beautiful thing. I say, baby, I'm suffering today. And my wife will give me kisses. So, yeah, it's pretty cool, actually.
Absolutely.
Not in those exact words, but that's wherever the words are, that's what they mean.
Now, I want us to be very, very careful, right? So if you're listening to Stephen say people tell you to shut up, and your first thought as a listener is, no, that's not true, that's the problem. So if people agree with you, sometimes
I feel like you just have to make sure you say it to the right person. You don't necessarily need to tell everybody that you're struggling, but you should hopefully have somebody in your life that will be like, oh, that's not good. Let me talk to you about it. You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of people are missing that. There's a lot of people missing that. I feel like men probably have that a little bit less than women, generally speaking. You know? So there's a lot of people on the internet that'll validate a woman's feelings, or a gay guy, feminine feelings. I'm gonna die. Fuck. Maybe not so much for guys. Oh, I lost. That's fucking cringe, dude. I'm gonna shit my pants. But yeah, fuck this game.
Understand what you're saying, but if they disagree with you, that's the problem. We literally have a man who's telling us right now that your experiences when I say I'm suffering, people tell you to shut up. And then people are going to be judging you for saying that. And they're going to be saying, no, that's not true.
They're going to be saying, shut up.
Absolutely. Right? So this is exactly the problem. So men are struggling right now, and the rest of the world says, no, you're not. You're privileged. You're a man. There's a patriarchy. And I'm not commenting on the sociology of it. There is a patriarchy, whatever. Men have many advantages in life. I've experienced many advantages of being a man.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's like there's this dismissive nature of it. Well, it's like, because, you know what I mean? There's this complete dismissive nature. You're like, hey, I'm struggling today. And some people are just like, well, fuck you. Everything is better for you. But it's like, is it? How do you know that specifically? You know what I mean? There's male privileges. There's female privileges. There's rich privileges. There's pretty privileges. There's this. There's that. You know, there's so many different privileges. I just don't think that that's the best way to respond to somebody's issue. Because I do feel like society puts a lot of pressures on men. Generally speaking, men are expected to perform better than women. You know what I mean? There's more women on welfare systems and whatnot. And I understand a lot of women with kids, single moms that work too hard. And they love their kids and they never stop. But then it's like there's no acknowledgement of the difficulty. Not even being a man. It's like being a masculine. The masculine difficulty. And then there's also that aspect of you as a masculine person of being like, oh, I don't want to complain because I could do this myself. And I'm going to prove to the world that I can. And nobody has to know. Nobody needs to know that I did this myself. I need to know for myself, and asking for help is cringe and gay. And then you realize, like, oh man, maybe it's not. You don't have to tell everybody, but you know,
Absolutely.
have that person.
True. Let's not go there. I'm talking about the individual experience of men. So there's one group of people.
And try to be that person for someone else sometimes too. You don't have to be it for everybody, but it's nice to be that person. Try to be that person. You know, that's some kind of emotional support.
On the planet who says, yes, your life does suck. And that's these toxic masculine people. They're the only people that truly validate men's experiences.
True.
Because everyone else says, why are you complaining? And these guys say, yeah, you're a fucking loser. What are you going to do about it? They at least meet you where you're at. And they say, yes, your life is hard, and I will show you a way to make it better. Whereas the rest of the world says, no, your life isn't hard. What are you complaining about? And I've seen this as a doctor. I've seen patients who are complaining about pain, women who are complaining about pain because they have an internal bleed within the wall of their uterus that cannot get detected. And they're saying, I'm hurting, and we ignore this person's pain. And that's when things go bad. So for years and years and years, we've ignored the struggles of men. And there's one group on the planet who accepts them with open arms. And the more that we demonize them, so when someone starts believing this toxic masculinity, what is the response? Do people ever ask, like, help me understand what your life is like? Like, what do you like about it?
No, I mean, listen, I think that there needs to be absolutely strong, stern pushback from a lot of red pill. You know, so I overall agree with the message, but there needs to be strong pushback. You need to know that you're not a man if you're somebody who worships Andrew Tate. If you look at the information, Andrew Tate is a fundamentally bad person. Remove all the sexual assault accusations. A guy who pimps a bunch of women out. It's pathetic behavior. It's loser behavior. But at the same time, you kind of need to offer another bit of masculinity or another alternative, we'll say, because that's the problem too. Who are the people telling you that Andrew Tate's a fucking loser? It's usually like no offense to any short kings out there. It's usually incredibly pale, long-haired, 5 foot tall, doughy men who don't really identify as with the philosophy of being a man. And if you're a more masculine guy, masculine young man with a lot of testosterone, who are you going to look at? You're going to look up at this fucking individual who's still deciding if they're non-binary or not, which by the way, it's a beautiful thing. And that's what you're doing. I respect your journey, but do you think a young man is like, that's my role model? No. We know that, people of different races tend to like black people want to see more black representation in media because they look at black people as more role models. Women look at other women as more role models. Men look at other men as more role models. A NASCAR driver is going to obviously look at a fucking other NASCAR driver as a role model. So a more masculine man naturally is going to want to look at a more masculine man as a role model. And you could be a masculine 5 foot tall king, guys. Don't worry. You could be a Tyler one. But a lot of times it's never them that are offering the alternative solution. It's usually some fucking beta. Not to be an asshole, So
about this person, because everyone's going to them for a reason, but we never bother to ask, why are you listening to this person? What does this mean to you? We see these posts all the time in our community. My boyfriend is getting into this stuff. My son is getting.
I want that money, baby.
This stuff. How do I stop it? Hold on a second. Don't try to stop it. Understand it first. because everyone's trying to stop it and no one is bothering to listen to what the experience of these men are. And that's why it's getting worse and worse and worse as we try to stop it.
So if I'm the mother of a son who is watching a lot of these sort of toxic male influences online, what would be a better approach versus just banning the computer and telling them that that's toxic and not to look at it?
Help me understand what you like about this. What is it like to be a man in today's day and age?
Yeah, that actually might be a great way. I mean, this is simple. Like, think about yourself as a kid, 10 years old, 15 years old. Imagine your parent came up to you and be like, what are you doing, son? Let's say something else. I'm playing fucking Fortnite. I don't know, something stupid. Cringe. Oh, cool. What do you like about this? And kid starts explaining it to you. You start learning about V-Bucks. A little silly, but you get in on the conversation. You know, all of a sudden now your son's able to come out and be like, Mom, I just won my first Fortnite. I got a victory royale. And you're like, wow, I understand what that is. It sounds so stupid, but it's like, imagine that on like more of a macro scale. Like, why do you like Andrew Tate? Oh, I want to be successful. I want this. I want this. I want this. Okay, well, you can't meet Andrew Tate, generally speaking. So like, what if I helped you become successful? Like, what do you mean? Like, all of a sudden you were able to have productive conversations where, you were slowly able to replace Andrew Tate. And then all of a sudden they're no longer addicted to this fucking bald man that likes to sexually abuse women, So,
How do you feel about yourself? How does it feel knowing that 70 to 80% of women want you to make more money than them, and yet 60% of people who graduate from college are women? So men are living in a world today where there are impossible expectations to meet.
True. I would say become a more rounded man. Don't just offer money as what you are. Throw good dick. I'm not kidding. And try to be more emotionally attentive,
And so, like, what is it like to be someone who fundamentally has no chance at success? Right? These are the kinds of things that you need to say to these people. You need to give them an alternate place to go where they can be heard and helped, supported, and understood. See, anytime we make a judgment, our mind already has a conclusion. There's nothing left to learn anytime we're judgmental. So what do we do to all these people who are toxic men? We even create the word toxic. We literally label them as bad in some way. And I'm not saying that the behavior isn't toxic, but what I'm trying to point out is that even in our language, there's so much harsh judgment. So I once had a patient.
We both just did it, didn't we?
Absolutely. So I once had a patient who was smearing feces all over the school. So adolescent kid, right?
Yeah. Sorry, I was trying to find the chug jug audio and it didn't work. Okay.
And when you have a kid who's literally taking a shit and wiping it on the walls and stuff, what happens? The kid gets punished. Kid gets punished again and again and again.
Yeah, of course. That school's always going to smell like shit and bleach. It's interesting, though, trying to figure out what that behavior is. Because, like, my wife works with people. I'm not going to be specific about it, but that could be a behavior. And it's interesting when you try to figure out why would you smear your shit on the walls. You'd be fucking surprised what you can learn. Some people do it as an attention-seeking method. Some people do it because as an act of defiance, which is probably an attention-seeking method. Some do it because they appreciate the sensations. And it's disgusting to think about. But it's like a texture thing. It's a tactile thing of like touch of doing that. And it's like, what is happening in your life that's making you want to engage in poop smearing? But if you can figure that out, you can replace that behavior with something else. If the kid wants attention, maybe instead of smearing your shit, you try to give the kid more attention when they ask for it. Or maybe it's a texture thing or a tactile thing. Or maybe it's for warmth. I'm not even kidding. There are some people that will piss or shit themselves because they need warmth. They feel like that's a good way to get warmth, and they're not quite as socially aware. And it's like, okay, what do? We give them warmth. You figure out a way to give them warmth. You may be finger painting for the texture, for the sensation. It's an interesting thing.
The really sad thing is no one ever asks, why are you doing this? What's going on inside you? Because healthy kids don't do this. It's only kids who've been traumatized in some way. And as I've worked with incels, as I've worked with people who are toxically masculine, it always starts with trauma. And when I say always, it's a clinical experience, but I'm talking about 100%. So 100% of people start on this path by getting hurt in some way, by getting taken advantage of in some way, by sacrificing something and not getting something in return. And they have their share of responsibility too. I'm not saying that they're hapless victims, but I think that people who are raised with love and compassion and do have connections don't go down this road.
You're so passionate.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
About this, aren't you? Because I feel like your eyes have seen in your practice some pretty heartbreaking things.
Yeah.
You've probably seen a lot of poop, Dr. K.
I think it's like, see, unless we are willing to be what these people need, they're going to continue going down the toxic masculinity route. Someone needs to start offering these people safe haven, no matter what they say, or not. No,
it doesn't even have to. Oh my God, what was that? It doesn't even have to be super crazy or meaningful. Like I said, like, dude, you could just be a good coach at school, and you could prevent these kids from going down this toxic rabbit hole just by being a good male role model and structure, by being a good coach at school or a good teacher at school. You'd be like honestly surprised. That's why I feel bad for teachers and stuff at school, because there's a lot of expectation upon you to be just not just a teacher, but also some kind of a role model. It's a lot of pressure, but you know what? It's a good thing to embrace.
Matter. I think there should be consequences for actions. But so this is as someone who's worked in a jail, right? So and this is what's kind of interesting if you really think about it. People will judge me for talking to or even trying to support people who are toxically masculine. And they're like, oh my God, you're such an asshole. You're giving these people a platform. How could you make the world a worse place? And then I tell them I worked in a jail for 3 months. And they're like, oh, look at you. You're so compassionate. You're working with these people who are like criminals. And like, oh my God. I don't think they realize that anyone you see on social media is 10 times better than the people that I worked with in jail.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying before. Like let's like have the robust conversation about the environmental impacts of people, like, you know, when it comes to Black Americans in 2020, but like, why not the same thing for young incels, you know? Why not? I was saying the same thing before. Yeah, absolutely.
These are people who are actual
It's like selective empathy.
pedophiles, actual
But what the fuck? Oh yeah, there's the people in jail.
rapists, right? Not just talking about it. Maybe the people on social media are too. I don't know. And so it's really interesting the way that our mind automatically judges things.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we really want to fix this problem, and I think we need to fix this problem, it's just my take. I mean, I'm not I'm a big fan of like compassion and trying to support other human beings. I'm not saying that that's always the right answer. I think sometimes you may need things like war or violence or whatever. I mean, there may be causes for it.
Sure.
But generally speaking, I think that like demonizing these people isn't working.
Is there anything else that we haven't covered in the remedies to this sort of male crisis? We've talked about getting more in touch with yourselves. Is there anything else? Do we need
What if we had the government mandated big titty, you know, Latinas?
more positive role models, or is it really not about the
Nah, we don't need big titties. We just need big butts.
external at all?
No, I mean, so I think all that stuff is true.
Actually, you know what? Any size, anything. I think it's a beautiful thing.
So we know that, for example, like there's like a loneliness
You say love at every size. How about come at every size?
crisis and things like that. I think that it's not just role models, like we need individual responsibility. So like, for example, everyone will say, yeah, like I know it's a real tragedy that men don't have friends, but it's not my job to fix. I will hear.
Yeah, I think that a good role model a good role model is what is able to teach individual responsibility, right? Like that's the thing. It's intuitive. It's hard to explain what it means to be a productive person. But if you have someone in your life that shows you what it means to be a productive, positive person, all of a sudden, you know, if it's a good, let's say the person you like is somebody with a lot of friends or a good amount of friends and a healthy relationship and this and that and a good job, you're going to want to be that. And you're going to look at their mannerisms and be like, I have to emulate that and take that on to some extent as my on my own. And then I will have those things. And sometimes it's so hard to teach those meaningfully or explicitly. That's why I just got like a burp to my nose, a little caffeine carbonation. That's why you need to have those role models.
This from both men and women. That like it's a real tragedy, but it's not my responsibility. It's sad that this thing happened, but it's not my and which makes sense, right? No human being is responsible for another human being. But then the question kind of becomes like, okay, let's play that tape through to the end. What happens to that person? Whose responsibility is it? So if you look at a lot of what's going on with men right now, it's loneliness, it's isolation, it's touch starvation, it's suicidality.
Sexless.
Bro, touch starvation, fucking crazy. Touch starvation is wild. I have that too. I had that. I had that too. I remember I was with somebody and they wouldn't touch me. And part of it was sex. They wouldn't have sex with me. I was part of it. And it you know, when somebody and you're never entitled to sex in a relationship, but when you're with somebody who won't sleep with you, it is a demeaning thing that kind of beats you down as a person. Because now it's like, why? You know, am I ugly? Am I unattractive? What am I doing wrong? You know? But it went so much further than that. It was like, you know, no hand holding and no cuddling, you know, and you know, even as a man, like that hurts. It's a tough feeling. It kicks your ass a little bit. You know, I remember having that, and I'm so fortunate I don't have that problem anymore. Beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing, you know. But that's like skin time, so important with my wife and I. Just touching skins. Sometimes we'll just kind of get naked or shirtless and sleep just so that we could touch skin. It sounds stupid, but it's such a bonding experience. You know, you want to stay in love longer. You want to be in love. Touch the other person's skin. It's a real thing that feels very nice. You know, it's crazy. It's really nice.
As well.
Sexlessness. And it's no individual person's responsibility. But the real problem with this is that these are not problems that men can solve on their own. This is exactly why this is the problem that men are experiencing. Because as men, we are taught to be independent. We are taught to be, you should fix everything on your own. And so men have fixed all of the things that we can fix on our own. The only thing that's left is the things that we must rely on other people for. Right? So no one's complaining about, you know, I mean, a lot of men are obese, but there's not like an obesity, there's a crisis, but that's not what's bothering people. That's not where we're losing the war. We're not losing the war on baldness. Right? So
what the fuck? I think I'm losing that war.
Lots of things as a man that you can fix in your own life. It's just the real challenge is that no one is willing to take responsibility for any level of connection with men. And so that's not something that is going to get fixed because you need another human being to hug you. Like you can't hug yourself. It just doesn't work.
True.
So and my area of focus tends to be on introspection because I think that's like really, really powerful, but there's all kinds of other stuff that's important. Mentorship, role models, all that kind of stuff. But I think ultimately through introspection, you can attain complete peace, no matter who you are, what your path is, circumstances. I think it's kind of like the silver bullet, which is what the Buddha discovered.
So are you saying there that as a society, we should take on more of the responsibility for some of these big fundamental issues that men and people in crisis can't solve for themselves?
Subtly, no. Not a society. Because as a society, who's part? No. I mean, you.
As like individuals, we need more individuals in society to try to, take on other people's problems. You don't have to, but it's a good thing to keep in mind. Because think about it, like we were talking before, overstimulation, too many stimuli going on. That leaves you less time for other people's problems. When you wake up in the morning and you're instantly on your phone, you go to take a shit and you're instantly on your phone, and then you're in the shower and you're listening to music, and then you get out of the shower and then you're in the car and then you're listening to the radio, you're listening to music, and then, or you're watching a video, or, listening to a podcast, and then you get to work and then you're working and you're stimulating yourself there, but then also you can't focus. So now you're watching your favorite streamer, Papa God, and you're just constantly having information loaded into you. Boom, 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 boom. You have less time to think, but you also have less time to help other people. You have less emotional battery. You have less emotional energy. You have less awareness of like, hey, what's that person's problem? Because who wants to go to someone else with their problems? You should learn to do that, but not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody wants to burden someone else with their problem. But if you're like, hey, what's your fucking problem, bub? Except you say it nicely. You're like, hey, are you okay? This is a little different. All of a sudden, they'll feel more open to saying it, and if you'll have more time. They'll be more open to saying it, and so like that's one of the things. Of be aware. It's hard to be aware, I think, of other people's issues because you're always thinking about yourself because there's so much going on. You're so stimulated, and I feel like we probably lost that a little bit as a society because of how everything is so fucking chaotic,
I mean, your listeners as individuals need to take responsibility. And it's not that you have to take responsibility. It's not fair to you to be responsible for someone else. But unless everyone who's listening to this podcast goes out and literally hugs a man, no one else is going to do it. Because if you don't do it, who's going to do it?
True.
You can't rely on society. We've been relying on society to fix the problem. It's not working. Society can't do shit.
So you're saying me? Forget
yes.
society. Don't wait for government to have some kind of intervention.
How's it working out?
Not great. I mean, the direction of travel as it relates to these sort of key issues like loneliness are only getting worse and worse. Suicidality seems to be getting worse and worse. Mm-hmm. Now you've got this young generation of women as well that are exploding in their suicidality.
Yes.
Young women. I think it's the fastest growing group at the moment, if my stats are correct there.
Yeah, so we have one really interesting thing is that...
actually, they're non-binary. I'm just kidding.
Men and women are becoming more equal in many ways, but in unfortunate ways. So female suicidality is getting worse. We're also seeing like male body dysmorphia on the rise. And I suspect it's way worse than we realize. But I think that what we're starting to see is less of a discrepancy in gender-related health issues. So the things that used to be predominantly men are now women are catching up, which is a bad thing. And things that were predominantly women, now men are catching up. So body dysmorphia in men, addictions in women are on the rise. So there's things are getting worse.
Interesting. I wonder if part of it is that like more things are being considered addictive, right? Like food is now considered more addictive. Cigarettes didn't used to be considered addictive, right? They used to just kind of be a cool thing you did. I wonder if there's an aspect of that, because just the fact of saying like, oh, video game addiction, that was never a thing. Even I think it's a little silly, but then I've also kind of lived it, and it's like, because as a society, do we acknowledge that this is an addiction? Or shopping addiction, that's a thing. Were women always shopping addicted, or you know what I mean? But do we always just think it's just a silly little thing people do? Well,
what explains that specifically? The suicidality in young women. I hear social media is a leading cause of that, but
yeah. So I think if we look at it, it's not just social media. So I think what's happened is that the fundamental day of a man and a woman, I believe, I don't know if this is factually correct, is getting closer and closer. So like, women are working now, men are working now. Like dating is hard. Like being on Tinder sucks if you're a dude or a woman for different reasons. We have a lot of technological influence. So like everyone's kind of...
Yeah, I mean, women will tend to go on dating sites to find love. But men really want sex, and then men go on dating sites for sex typically, and women want to find love. So then it's like women have an easy time finding the sex because men are offering it, but then they have a hard time finding that love. And then a man who can get sex though can find that love, but is doesn't typically want to get it, so or give it because they just wanted the sex, and it's just like it gets a little, it's a lot, it's crazy.
Kind of getting screwed, and we're all kind of getting screwed together. And just because things are getting bad or worse for men, and men are in crisis, has no relation to the fact that women are struggling for a whole different set of reasons. So there's plenty of biases that I see as a psychiatrist. There's biases against men in psychiatry. There's biases against women in psychiatry. I think one of the biggest mistakes that we make is that we seem to think that it's like a pendulum, where it's like if we're biased against men, we can't also be biased against women. But I think both groups can suffer at the same time catastrophically.
And they are.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the role of social media. Your book is called How to Raise a Healthy Gamer. And when I think about gaming, I think some people think about it like holding a controller and being a character in a video game or shooting something, whatever. But many of these social media apps are almost indistinguishable from gaming in many respects. So the role of social media in our mental health in the modern world, good, bad, indifferent?
So bad right now. So let's understand something. So social media and technology is kind of like introducing an invasive species. So
Yeah, it's something new. It's a new struggle. You know, it solved other problems, but it creates new problems, and we have to figure out how to deal with those problems. But one of the problems, though, is that technology is rising so quickly; it's difficult to tackle all the issues that are going on. I mean, this is a technological boom on the internet. We have iPhones that are more powerful than PlayStation 1s, and when did those come out? 20 years ago? It's fucking insane. There's so much information coming at us. We still haven't figured out exactly what people's boundaries should be when it comes to your computer or the internet. There's a lot going on.
There's no checks and balances right now. So I don't think gaming is evil. So I struggled with video game addiction. I play video games with my kids now. So the main problem with social media and technology is that it's completely
It's
unregulated.
funny. I guess I did too. And now I just because I had to work so much, like now video games are not as necessarily as enjoyable as they used to be. So I play fucking brain rot, but I also get to play it for work. So
And we don't know how to fight against it. So what's happening right now is, especially if you look at social media, is that like it is affecting our brains and we're outgunned. So if you kind of like look at, for example, we're talking about masculinity, right? And what's my antidote to that? It's introspection. So if we sort of look at these yogic or meditative skills,
which is a feminine trait, a beautiful feminine trait, I think, at least. That's how I'd categorize it.
as we train ourselves in these skills, we will become impervious to the negative effects of technology. The problem is that these things are so good at literally shaping our thoughts. So as an example, if we look at social media, body dysmorphia and insecurity about the way that we feel about ourselves can lead to things like suicidality. Okay. So as we look at, all these pretty people on social media, you look at all these people who are not normal, right? So social media will show you the prettiest people. And so we start, as I see,
or the ugliest. Not for nothing, my For You page is full of people with physical disabilities, and I don't mean to be rude, but I keep seeing them, and I'm like, damn. It puts it on my For You page, and then part of me is like, I'm lucky to not be that. And I know that sounds horrible, you know what I mean? But it's kind of true. I guess there's at least a silver lining there.
pretty face after pretty face after pretty face, I start to think that that is normal. My brain makes this calculation, and then I start to feel ugly. So this results in body dysmorphia. So if we sort of look at that, the more we see pretty things, the more that we have FOMO, because everyone is having fun, right? If I log on to Facebook or Instagram, this person is having a birthday party, this person is having, every time I log on, everyone is having a blast.
It's so interesting. My wife and I just talked about FOGO, or FOMO, fear of missing out. And we talked about it from a perspective of being overweight, because we're both overweight. Beautiful thing. It's not a beautiful thing. It's a bad thing. But we talk about how we want to lose weight, but we don't have anything that we want to do when we lose weight. Like, we're not the kind of people that are like, oh, I would have clubbed or party if only I wasn't so fat, or oh, I would have went here, oh, I would have went here. The two of us just want to lose weight to be healthier. I haven't missed out on an experience. There's no woman that I want if I lose weight. There's no man my wife wants. There's probably some roller coasters I would do if I lost some weight, of course. But overall, I've been very fortunate, and my wife is too, and not missing out because of our weight in any meaningful way, where it's like once we lose weight, we're going to be like, oh my fucking God, I'm going to go to a bar and do socialize and which, because you see it a lot, man. One partner will lose a tremendous amount of weight, and then they'll leave their other partner because like, oh my God, I can do everything now. But we are so fortunate to not have that problem, in a way that would be detrimental to our relationship. We would lose weight so maybe we can go walk more, or there's probably some more sex positions we would like to do with each other. I'm a little too big to, I got a decent size, but I got a big belly, so it kind of gets in the way sometimes, and maybe, my wife could put on a little more stamina when she rides it. But outside of those things, there's really nothing crazy going on that it's like, oh my God, I'm missing out,
But this is 365 people who each have one birthday party. I get one birthday party a year, but anytime I look at social media, it seems like everyone is always having fun. It's not everyone. It's just one person is having fun today, one person is having fun tomorrow. Everyone just gets one birthday a year. But
True. Same thing with like all the negative information news that you're seeing. I agree with that.
when we see it, we see everyone's having fun and I'm not having fun. So this makes us feel bad about ourselves. So what is the antidote to that? So in the yogic tradition, we have this concept of a ahamkara or ego. So you have particular meditative practices that help you dissolve your ego. And essentially what social media does is amplifies our ego, makes us feel really bad about ourselves. Remember that one of the key hallmarks is comparison of ego. Mm-hmm. So social media induces a lot of comparison. So as we train our mind, we will become free from those problems. True. So if I learn how to dissolve my ego, then social media is not a problem.
And this is a problem I don't think people had to the same extent back in the day. You know, when you didn't have social media, there was just less comparison going on. So, you know, you might have been like a guy that's a little, maybe you're working a lot, but overall, like you're pretty happy. You have some nice things. You're in a comfortable air conditioned setting or temperature controlled setting, and et cetera, et cetera. Now, though, you go on TV and you see the fucking Kardashians, or you go on Instagram and you see this person and they're rich and they have this and they have that. And it's like, oh, now my life sucks, because I'm seeing in the comparison like my life sucks. But does your life really suck? Probably not. but now you think your life sucks, you know?
Easier said than done.
Absolutely.
You even said that you've still got an ego.
100%.
And you've done all this practice and you've still got an ego.
Yeah.
Have you dissolved it at all?
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, it's way smaller than it used to be, but even to say that I have completely dissolved my ego is an egotistic statement. So this is a battle that I will never win, and I've just accepted that, right? So there's no way to win. I'm not going to become enlightened in this day and age. So I'm just going to do the best that I can, and I'll never succeed. That's okay.
There's so many shocking stats.
I mean, you will. No, I get what he's saying, but you will succeed. You just won't ever be perfect. But like, life is not about perfection.
That kind of links to two things we've talked about here around connection and relationships. I think we all know intuitively now, especially with all the research and data that's come out, how important relationships are for mental health. Gaming, social media, the digital world, the Vision Pro. I bought one yesterday. Virtual reality, augmented reality. As we head more towards these digital worlds, are you concerned at all that we're losing sight of connection?
Probably. I mean, we're getting to a point now where, like, who's to say that, you know, now we have virtual reality. Who's to say that they're not going to be able to emulate hormones and sensations that you get from hugging somebody or having sex with somebody? Because it's not just about coming. It's about, you know, like the person that you're with. And there's so many different sensations that you feel at the same time when you're physically engaging with somebody. And it's like, oh, how, you know, what if they start to emulate that, and they can, and what if they figure out a way to emulate it at different ways? Like, different people release different hormones at different levels, probably the same hormones, but at different levels. And it's like, you know, what if they're able to emulate that, and they're able to like put up a structure of like perfectly congruent chemicals, and then, you know what I mean? Then that's a whole philosophical conversation about, like, you know, you're fucking a robot, a VR robot, but it's like, is it actually a person because you've made it emulate a person? You know, it's a lot. There's so many different. I'm a little afraid for the next generation. You know, I feel like there's going to be, I feel like I'm a little afraid for them. Thank you so much for the $5 from Ryan. I want to challenge you to lose to a weight loss battle for the sake of all roller coasters. Let's do it. I don't know, man. Okay, sure. I'm already kind of on my journey. Right now, it's not necessarily losing weight, just getting healthier, which weight loss is obviously a factor in, but I'm more focused on like getting more physically active and getting more physically fit, you know, taking my time on it. Just doing better, not perfect, you know?
That in comparison, or alongside the stats that we know about sexlessness, people having less sex, marriages seeming to get worse and worse and more difficult. The direction of travel here doesn't feel like it's very optimistic.
Yeah, it's not.
And what do we do about that? Do you think we just become gurus and leave the digital world and the Western world and try and escape and take our kids with us? I had someone talk to me about that idea.
No, so I don't think so, right? So my book is how to raise a healthy gamer. What I believe is that these things are only evil if we don't know how to deal with them. So what's happened is human beings have created fire for the first time, but we don't know how to control fire. So we don't need to run away from technology. We just need to get better at dealing with it. And getting better at dealing with it is everything from maybe government regulation or whatever to even training our like personal sense of self.
Yeah, set positive boundaries with your consumption of content.
So if you sort of look at like why are relationships decaying, it's for a number of reasons. The first is that, see, human relationships evolutionarily were predicated on the fact that humans needed each other for survival. So fundamentally, what has always bound human beings together is like, I need you and you need me. Otherwise, we're not going to survive.
Yeah, I guess that's not so much anymore, which is so interesting because my wife and I have a very nice relationship, but we went through a lot together, which I think brought us here. And if you're somebody who doesn't go through a lot, it's like, how could you develop the same bond that I was able to develop with my wife? You know what I mean? That struggle is it's an intense bonding experience that's so difficult to emulate. And it's like, if you do have a lot of your needs met, not just basic needs, but like your wants and needs met, it's like, how are you able to have a really strong relationship with somebody, you know?
But what's happening in the world today is we no longer need each other for survival. So I never even need to leave my house. I can order groceries, I can order food, I can work from home. I can literally stay in my home or in my room, and I never need to walk out of the house. I never need to interact with someone. So once you remove necessity from the equation as to why human beings form relationships, so we're seeing a decay in relationships because we no longer need each other, right? So women no longer need men. You can have an independent life as a man. You no longer need a woman. You can get a fleshlight if you want to. You can have an AI girlfriend. You have pornography. We don't need each other.
True. Yeah.
And yet the human mind is the only organ of the body that in order for it to be healthy, it requires another human being. So we don't need, our heart can be healthy without another human. Kidneys can be healthy. Liver can be healthy. Our whole body can be healthy except for the brain and except for the mind. We need someone else to be mentally healthy. So now what we're going to have to do as a society is evolve. We're going to have to start to realize that we don't need relationships anymore in order to survive. But without them, we will all suffer. And so what we need to do is evolve as humans. And I think part of that is like learning some of these yogic and meditation skills so that we can resist the negative influences of technology. But that also means prioritizing relationships even when we don't need to.
Do you think they should teach these skills in school? The yogic
100%.
Could be a good time to intervene.
Yeah, absolutely. How would you do that? I feel like it's so complicated. I guess you'd need mental health counselors to be very in touch with themselves, which could be rough because a lot of guidance counselors were a dog shit back, at least in my day in school. You know, I wonder what it takes to be one of those fucking pieces of shit. But
wouldn't it?
Yes, 100%. And I taught these kids these skills to kids, and it's amazing how quickly they pick it up. It's hard for me and you to learn because we're already formed. But just like a language, like if you teach it to a child, I'll teach. You know, like I taught infants to meditate. My own children, I taught them to meditate when they were like 2.
What does that mean? What are these skills? If you were trying to teach a grown up like me, where would you begin?
So I'll tell you where I began with my kids. And then we'll get
Please,
to you.
yeah.
So let's understand what meditation is. So meditation is controlling the attention of your mind. So if I tell my mind to focus on this, it's going to focus on this. So if we look at meditation, there are a couple of key steps. The first is ignoring impulses. So if I tell my mind to focus on this object, it will have an impulse to focus on something else. So we have to train the mind to stop thinking about other things. So I teach this to my 4-year-old in a very fun way. I tell her to lay down on the ground and we play this game called Sniffer Gobbler, where I'm a monster called a Sniffer Gobbler and she has to be perfectly still. So the Sniffer Gobbler is going to try to get her to move. And if she moves, then she gets gobbled. So this becomes a game. So I'm kind of trying to get her to move. I'm tickling her a little bit. I'm sniffing or whatever. I'm playing some kind of game with her. And she's being perfectly rigid because it's part of a game. So what's going on in her brain in this moment? As I tickle her, there's an impulse to move. The peripheral body is sending nervous signals
That's very interesting.
to the brain. Let's move. Let's shift. Let's do something. Let's do something. But her frontal lobes in that moment are learning to restrain her mind and literally control her impulses. So this is step number 1: is stop your impulses. You can learn this very simply by, for example, I would recommend for someone like you a practice called Trataka. So Trataka is fixed point gazing. So you take a candle and you gaze at the candle without blinking. So the first 10 seconds will be easy, but then you'll start to get signals. Let's blink, let's blink, let's blink, let's blink. It's going to start to burn. They're going to
That's tough for me because I have OCD and Tourette's.
start to tear up. You probably won't get hurt. Don't worry about it. It's safe practice. Because then your eyes will start to water and they'll lubricate, which is usually what our eyelids need to do. And so you'll start to have tears, but then
I've been watching Papa Guts and Stuff Noodles. I didn't realize I wasn't subscribed. No, you probably were. This is a new channel, brother. This is a new channel I've been working on for the past 1.5 years, my man. So
focus your mind. And now what you're literally doing is controlling your impulses. You're restraining your impulses. So that's the first step of meditation, is to not let your mind wander into 1,000 different things. Now, if you do this one practice, which is not even real meditation, your life will be transformed. So you will literally, it's like lifting weights for self-control. So now you're sitting down to eat a meal, 11 p.m. rolls around, you have those cravings, but if you've done Trataka, your frontal lobes will be strengthened. And as your frontal lobes become strengthened, you are able to resist your impulses. You will gain control over yourself. That's step 1. Just resist your impulses. This is usually why meditation practices involve sitting and focusing and like not moving even. The second step is a little bit different. There's a difference between avoiding distraction and then pushing my mind to focus on a different thing. So then, for example, what I'll do with my daughter is I'll tell her to chant Om and maximize the feeling of vibration in your chest. So now what she's doing is she's attuned to her body, she's chanting Om, and then she's trying to maximize the vibration. So in this moment, she's using something to focus the attention of her mind because her mind is fully on the chest and feeling that vibration. And then she's kind of experimenting a little bit, but she's really tuned in. And that trains our mind to focus on one thing. So these are steps number 1 and 2. So the first thing—
interesting. I feel like some of that is like almost applied when I try to work out, when I lift weights, especially when I'm on like my last set. Everything else becomes like a distraction. I try to just do like focus on lifting, breathing, increasing my intra-abdominal pressure, hitting my technique well.
thing you've got to do is avoid impulses and distractions. And the second thing is teach your mind how to sit on one thing and don't go anywhere else. That's step 1 and 2, and then you'll be ready for meditation.
And what is meditation?
So meditation, the word meditation in English has 3 Sanskrit words that get translated into meditation: dharana, dhyan, and samadhi. So dharana is technically a focusing technique. It's something that you do. So I can tell you gaze at a candle flame without blinking. This is a dharana. It is a focusing technique. This is what's confusing for a lot of people. The second word for meditation is dhyan. So dhyan is not something you can do. It's a state of mind. So I'll explain this very simply. Do you know how to go to sleep?
Me, no. I mean, well, I go to bed and I lay down and I usually put something on so I can listen to it as I fall asleep.
Is that how I sleep?
No.
How should I sleep? Pretend I don't know how to sleep. Can you teach me how to sleep?
Go to the bedroom.
Okay. Done that.
Make sure.
I don't think you can teach anybody how to sleep. I mean, it's just something that's so intuitive, which goes back to before, but sometimes you teach people based on like some kind of an intuition. But yeah, I couldn't teach somebody how to sleep. I know for me, when I try to sleep, it can be difficult because you're always stimulated with your phone. So what I try to do is eventually put my phone down. And then, I don't know, sometimes I'll just like imagine myself in a scenario. Like kind of, maybe it'll be like a kind of a badass scenario, maybe like something silly that I enjoy, like a zombie apocalypse or something stupid. And I just kind of let my mind wander into a story and I get myself into it and I fall asleep. I basically tell myself a bedtime story,
It's nice and cold.
Okay.
Lay there in the bed and close your eyes.
Okay.
And wish for the best.
So I laid there and I closed my eyes. I have a blanket over me. It's cold and I'm not asleep yet. What am I doing wrong? What do I need to do to go to sleep?
Maybe you're not tired enough.
Have you slept before?
Yeah.
Have you done it a lot?
Yeah.
But you can't tell me how to do it.
Not really, no.
Absolutely. So sleep is a state of consciousness. So going to bed is something that you do, and then sleep happens to you. This is the biggest misunderstanding about meditation. Everyone's focused on meditation techniques. These are dharanas. If you are in a dharana, as you gaze at the candle for an extended period of time, your mind will enter a state of consciousness in the same way that you enter sleep, but you can't control it. You can't do it. You can't evoke it. You just have to create the right environment, and then the consciousness will trigger. The closest thing that many people experience is the flow state. But even in the flow state, there is mental activity. So the flow state is like the early stage of meditation. And then after you enter dhyan, which is a state of consciousness, which is of no mind. So you have awareness, but you have no thoughts, no emotions. You're just simply aware. The best example of this that some people have experienced, a couple of things. One is orgasm. The moment of orgasm is one where you have no thoughts. Thoughts come afterward.
Interesting. I never thought about that.
Thoughts come before. But in that
Because I'm always coming.
moment of orgasm, you are aware, you are present, you are blissful, but you have no thoughts or no mental activity. Sometimes also like looking at the sun, like watching a sunset, walking along the beach. There's some moments where you're present. You're not really thinking about anything, but you're not asleep. You're not daydreaming. This is what
When I look at the sun, I'm usually thinking, oh, my eyes, because they burn so much.
dhyan is. This is the second stage of meditation. After you sit in dhyan for a while, then you will attain something called samadhi. So these are the transcendental states of meditation. This is the kind of stuff that psychedelics does to you. So when you enter these samadhi states, this is when you start to get transformed and all this weird stuff that's very hard to describe. So I would say that meditation is these three things. It's a focusing technique, followed by a state of consciousness that, fingers crossed, get induced. And once you're in that state,
I personally wouldn't recommend doing drugs, though. Just me personally.
then you can kind of start climbing.
And what impact does
You never know what other kind of shit you could bring out with the drugs, some kind of trauma potentially, And if it feels real good, I'll never know because I don't want to do drugs.
has it had on your life?
I've drinking before, but I got to pee a lot. And I've smoked weed before, but I greened out once and it was terrible.
Transformative, completely changed my life. I mean, I used to be a 25-year-old kid with nothing to show for it, and now arguably I'm successful, right? So I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a Harvard-trained psychiatrist, I have a clinical practice, I'm a dad, I'm a content creator, and it's like I'm the same kid that was failing out of college. Like I haven't changed. The only difference between the loser and the successful person, which neither of those are true, by the way, those are both manifestations of ego. I'm neither a loser nor am I successful. These are external trappings. But fundamentally, I'm the same person that I've always been. And the only difference is that meditation taught me how to control this thing. It's like when you're living life, it's like you're playing a video game and the controller is unplugged. So the character on the screen does whatever the fuck it wants to. And you're trying to send it signals, but it's not listening to you. So what meditation is the process of plugging in your controller so that you start controlling the instrument of your life. You understand how your body works. You understand how your mind works. You understand where your desires come from. You understand how to conquer them. You understand what your ego is. You understand all of these kinds of things. And meditation is what helped me do that.
The thing with meditation, the sort of instant rebuttal is I tried it and it didn't work. Or I tried it and I can't stop myself from thinking
Oh, it sounds like it's a very difficult thing to try and get to work.
about things. That's like
Seems like a little bit almost complicated. I mean, I get what he's saying. It's just interesting.
what I hear all the time. Oh, I can't meditate. I tried it. My brain's too busy.
Okay, great. So let's rebut those. As I've helped at least 1,000 people overcome this. So let's understand a couple of fundamentals. See, if you've tried meditation, it didn't work for you, it's not your problem. And it's not that meditation doesn't work for you. It's that you had a crappy teacher. So if we understand, okay, like this is something
Like
that
a little
how
bit
do people
almost
learn how to meditate?
complicated. Fuck.
They hear a podcast like this and then they go sit in their room at some point and then they close their eyes and try and think of nothing and it doesn't work. So they stop.
Okay, great. So like who is their teacher?
The Diary of a CEO.
Right? But this is what I mean. So the quality of meditation teaching has degraded so profoundly. Everyone has mindfulness apps. What's your teacher? It's an app.
Yeah.
So if I were to say like, okay, like, Stephen, you're a pretty crappy surgeon, but you've never gone to medical school. How would you expect to ever be a decent surgeon unless you literally had people teach you? So there are a couple of things that I learned how to meditate because I had expert teachers. The reason that I teach meditation successfully is because I'm a decent teacher. I'm not even the best teacher out there. So a couple of things to understand about meditation. One is that there are 112 meditation techniques, one of which will work
Jesus
very
Christ.
naturally for every person on the planet. Okay, so the number one reason that people suck at meditation is because we're not teaching them the right kind of meditation. As a simple example, so I have patients with ADHD, and I teach them very successfully to meditate. Now, a lot of these patients, when they come to me, they say meditation doesn't work for me because I can't get my mind to slow down and focus on one thing. It always wanders. To which I say, that's great. No problem. We're going to teach you meditation that's going to feel so easy for you. So let me ask you this: if I've got a kid, okay, who's running around, and I want my kid to sit still, how do I get the kid to sit still?
I don't know. I'm trying to remember. What do they? I mean, they just drugged me up. They gave me Ritalin. I don't know. For a kid, I don't even know if that's one of the problems too. Is like obviously I can see why medication can be necessary for people, of course, but I feel like it doesn't teach you how to engage with your behavior. It just is a blanket for your behavior. It's a and that can be a very jarring and frustrating experience too. Because who wants to be suppressed like that? It sucks when you're suppressed so much. Instead of learning to deal with it better. Wow.
How do people typically do that?
Yeah,
They shout at the kid.
Okay, so then the
try
kid
to
sits still for a little while, then what happens?
runs off again.
Absolutely. So how do I get a kid to sit still? When does a child
Hit him. I'm just kidding.
sit?
When it's playing a game.
Okay, so we can engage it in some way.
Yeah, when he's stimulating.
So like this is why I don't know if you've seen this, but in airports they'll have like these little play places.
Mm-hmm.
So the best way to get a child to sit down is to tell it to run. You run, go to the playground for an hour. And then what'll the child do? Naturally, I want to sit down. So when I'm teaching my patients with ADHD how to meditate, I don't tell them to slow down their mind. I tell them to move it as fast as you can. So I'll literally take my patients to a cafeteria and we sit in the cafeteria and I tell my patient,
Thank you so much, Justin Lewis, for the small gut, brother. Appreciate that.
you have to pay attention to as many sounds as you can, as quickly as you can. I want you to hear every sound in the cafeteria. Don't miss a single one. Don't pay
Interesting. So overstimulate and then just burn out.
attention to what people are saying, but hear the words, hear this sound, hear this sound, hear this sound, hear this sound. So what I'm really telling their mind to do is run instead of sit still. Eventually what happens is they're paying attention to sound number 1, then sound number 2, sound number 3, not fast enough, faster. You need to listen to 10 sounds in 3 seconds. Go faster, go faster, go faster, go faster. And eventually the mind gets tired and then the mind naturally sits down.
Interesting. Very interesting. I wonder if that's one of the things that happens with me when I play this game or when I stream, because I'll usually have more. That's one of the things. I play games. I enjoy the content I engage with, but I get bored. You know what I mean? And I think that's natural. when I play a game, it's like helps me kind of keep track of myself and keeps me entertained. And I wonder if that's part of the reason why I need that. You know what I mean? Or else I just end up tuning. I don't know. It's interesting. I wonder if that has something to do with it. I'm kind of just exploring thoughts. Not everything's going to make sense, everybody. Sorry.
Easiest meditation in the world. Then they enter dhyan. So what are they doing in dharana? They're paying attention to sound number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And then eventually the mind will calm down. It'll get exhausted and then they'll enter dhyan. And then they've learned to meditate. So I think the reason that meditation doesn't work for people is because they haven't tried the right technique. So you look like a guy who exercises. You exercise?
Yeah.
How do you exercise?
Go to the gym, lift the weights.
Okay. What about running?
Yeah, sometimes.
Swimming?
No, can't swim.
Why not?
I think it's just a story I told myself, but I just can't float.
Okay, great, right? So if all exercise was swimming, you would have concluded that exercise is not for me. But there are 1,000 ways to exercise because human beings are different. So
Interesting. Okay, I get what he's saying.
you just have to find the right
There's different ways to exercise something. Okay,
kind of
cool.
exercise
Yeah,
for you.
That's
And it's
interesting.
fun for you. People will look at you, they'll say, I don't understand how you exercise. Oh my God, it's awful. I hate lifting weights, but I love swimming. I love hiking. I love rafting. So learning how to meditate is not about doing one particular tradition. And this is where there's a big problem in the world today, which is that most meditation teachers just know their one tradition. And so if a student comes to them and they don't do it right, the teacher tells them, you need to keep trying, keep trying, keep trying. I've seen very few meditation teachers say, you know what? I'm not the teacher for you.
Yeah, it's like a therapist. I mean, not every therapist is for everybody.
This is not the right app for you. You should go use this different app because based on your mind, this is what will suit your mind. We each have a cognitive fingerprint, and learning how to meditate very easily is about
Thank you so much, BZ Boom, for the small guy.
choosing the right meditation for your cognitive fingerprint.
And does meditation help us with these addictions we've been talking about? Social
100%.
media addictions, porn addictions, you talk about as well, gaming addictions.
I think I would go as far as to say that it conquers them all. So that's kind of a grandiose statement. But if we really look at what is an addiction is two things. It is a source of pleasure and it is an antidote to pain. So anytime we look at any addiction, so opium, for example, gives me pleasure and it also numbs out, it shuts off the functioning of my amygdala and my limbic system. Video games shut off my amygdala and my limbic system, make my negative emotions go away and release dopamine. So we have dopamine release and we have suppression of our negative emotional circuitry. All addictions do this. So if you sort of look at it, why do we fall into an addiction? It's because we become dependent on this dopamine surge, on giving into our wants, right? So our mind says, oh, I want this thing, and we can't control that impulse. When it wants something, I have to give it. I can't control it. I'm too weak.
I mean, that makes perfect sense. Obviously, what you're addicted to is going to have a different level of impact on the negativity, but overall, I mean, I get it. So it blocks like the bad out and it gives you a good. I guess I've been there before too. Sometimes you just get distracted playing video games. Eating is probably worse for you because I get distracted too, and I mean, I'm just like, oh, this is a delicious. I'm fucking hungry as hell right now, boy. I'm fucking can't wait to eat something good. I'm gonna fuck my own ass with some hot dogs later. I don't know why I said that. Anyway, interesting.
The other thing that happens is that anytime we have pain, we have to run away from it. But meditation is literally the process of training those two skills. So when I have a want, I learn to resist it. I want to scratch my nose, no scratching your nose. And what we sort of know from a neuroscience standpoint is that we know that meditation strengthens our frontal lobes, and weak frontal lobes are fertile ground for addictions. So we know that we literally strengthen the parts of the brain that will help you resist an addiction from the pleasure side. The other cool thing about meditation is that it makes us not impervious to pain, but we stop avoiding pain. So you asked me, like, am I nervous about how the book is going to? No, if it crashes and burns, then I will be sad. So what, right? So I'm going to be sad. Will I be sad forever? Well, that depends on whether I base my sense of identity on this one book. I'll be sad for some amount of time. And that sadness, by the way, is karmically what I bought when I wrote the book. And I think this is something that a lot of people miss. But the moment that I write the book, I open myself up to the pleasure of it being a success and the pain of it being a failure. Does that
Yeah, that makes sense.
That makes sense?
I guess it's the same thing with like releasing a video as well. I know it's silly. I'm a content creator, so it's like a weird way to talk about that. But like that kind of makes sense as well. Or when you have like a particular take, you know, there's times where I'm like, oh, should I really have this take or should I make something this title? I mean, I might get backlash, and then my mind spirals and it's like, oh my God, what if everything I've gotten canceled for before comes back up into the light? And then, you know what I mean? People just don't understand where I'm coming from. And then at the end of the day, I guess there's just nothing I can do about it. If that happens, then I go get a truck driving job or something. I get it, but interesting. Yeah.
So if I really wanted to avoid the pain, the only solution is to not write the book in the first place. But that's not the way to live life. So meditation teaches us how to tolerate pain, how to accept pain. And then once you can accept pain, oh my God, your life will become so much easier. And then something beautiful happens. Now I don't have to use the opium. My day job is as an addiction psychiatrist. So I teach this stuff to people who are addicted to heroin and fentanyl and video games and stuff like that. And it works for all of them. Not all of them, most of them. And so meditation absolutely helps because it literally strengthens the parts of our brain that addictions prey on.
It's interesting because I know that like a lot of people, when they stop doing one thing, they get like a transfer addiction. And so for food addicts, we'll say, when they get surgery that makes them eat less, there's like a very high chance of a transfer addiction. So it could be something like cigarettes, which is bad, but probably not the worst, or alcohol or drugs. And so what it sounds like to me is that like we're just redirecting our addiction to something, another almost addiction, but like not a bad one, like meditation. You know, it's still a pattern that you're engaging in that's going to, you know, take away time from your life, I suppose. It's just a more constructive, painful addiction that has a positive outcome. And so that's interesting. I mean, I guess that's really what it is. You got to fill that hole, that void.
And these are all addictions, so like food addictions and porn addictions
Absolutely.
and gaming addictions and social media addictions.
So each addiction has a slightly different manifestation, but the core aspect of providing pleasure and taking away pain is true of all addictions.
What is the most popular addiction in your mind that the vast majority of society are currently
A phone addiction for sure. Social
prey
media,
to,
phone.
but don't really realize? I mean, reading through your book, I think phone addiction,
Yeah, for sure.
which you talk about in chapter 7, is maybe the thing that none of us see as an addiction, but we're probably addicted. If I look at my screen time, I
The
think, Jesus
most
Christ.
popular, yeah, so I think phone addiction is really bad. I mean, in a weird way, I'd say this doesn't really qualify as an addiction, but the biggest problem I think is our addiction to success. Right? So if we sort of think about it, like, I don't know if that's kind of the context of just where my mind goes, but if we sort of think about it, everyone is using success as an antidote to their pain and a source of their pleasure. And so here we are chasing all of these things for success, for success, for success. But in terms of like,
Which I think isn't a bad thing to chase success. I guess it just depends on what your relationship is with what you think success is. So if you think success is a nice, reasonable, marginal increase in your life or the amount of money you make or whatever, that's probably a more positive relationship. But if you think success is just like every time you have a positive thing happen in your life, and it's just never enough, then that would have a negative relationship with what success is. So, you know, it's like success in moderation.
like technology or like from a psychiatric perspective, I think phone is probably at the top of the list.
I think I've been quite confused about something in my life, but just generally, because when I think about those young men that are struggling, or young women that are struggling, I often think what their life is lacking is a sense of purpose and ambition and something to strive for. This is kind of what we say. But now I'm kind of confused based on what you said, because is that what they're missing? Like you see a kid, he's 22 years old, he's in his mum's basement, he, you know, low self-esteem, playing video games all day, doesn't respect himself, low self-worth. In my head, I used to think, okay, well, what that kid needs is a big goal to strive for.
Fair enough. So, but
Yeah, I would say that's probably helpful, giving a meaning in your life. I agree.
let's pay attention to your specific language. So you said what that kid needs is purpose, ambition, and something to strive for. Are those three things the same?
No.
Right? So this is the big core of the problem. Is this is why things get muddled and this is why people get confused, because ambition is very different from purpose. They're like at opposite ends of the spectrum. If we look at it from a scientific perspective, the number one thing that correlates, or one of the two most popular, or two variables that correlate the most with pornography addiction, is meaninglessness in life. So if you want to conquer your pornography addiction, you have to have a reason to not jerk off and watch porn all day.
Yeah, true. Ambitious, having or showing a strong desire and determination to succeed, which can be a good thing to have, like desire to succeed. I guess if you're overly ambitious, though, and it's like you have too much of a desire, that could potentially impact your brain of like, well, this isn't enough. I didn't do well enough, and you don't enjoy. That's one of the things I've had to learn a lot, is like to enjoy the level of success that I'm at now. You know, because sometimes, especially in like the content creator sphere, and by the way, my job is easier than any of yours. I'm not sitting here saying it's harder. But one thing that I have is that, like, you know, as a content creator, most people who do content, they have a very short-lived career. So it's like, I feel like the default thought is like, I need to become as successful as possible, as quickly as possible. Because if I don't, I'm going to run out of time to become successful and get my bag and get out. You know, there's people like, oh, I was in YouTube for 5 years, and then they get millions and then they're done. And it's like that sometimes makes me feel like, okay, I need to straight go fast. But in the past year and a half that I've been training myself to just chill the fuck out, and it's just been kind of like, you know, slow and steady, and like, yeah, there's aspects of it that are uncertain. I might have to get a real job, but having that in my brain of like, I'm willing to do that is also profoundly helpful. And I feel like going slow has been so helpful. You know, anytime I've gotten a big surge or a boost, it's been over some controversy that annoyed the shit out of me and stressed me out. Even if I did very well through it and I ended up coming out the other side looking very positive, it's still been like a stressful and like, oh, this sucks. Like, I don't want that kind of stress. And yeah, I mean, gravitating away from that and the slow build has been very positive and very helpful and impactful. So
you have to have a life that like makes it so that you just don't do that. Because what happens is if you have an empty life and your brain is kind of sitting there and it's like, okay, we're not doing anything anyway, so let me get some dopamine. Like, let's just do that. And that's how people become addicted to pornography.
Is there correlation there between when people masturbate and what they're going through in their life?
Absolutely. So it's not even masturbation with pornography addiction, but what we find is that the more emotional, the more their amygdala and limbic system gets activated, the more pornography they will use. So the more negative emotion you experience, the more pornography you will watch.
oh shit, that makes sense. Okay.
Why? Because I want dopamine.
No, so this is where it avoids the pain. So pornography shuts off our experience of negative emotions. It's not even the pleasure, it's the avoidance of the negative emotion.
Interesting.
If I'm really stressed and I'm going through a lot of shit work, I have a higher chance of masturbating that day.
Not even masturbating, watching pornography.
Okay.
So masturbation is what leads to the dopamine, but watching pornography will shut off the negative emotions.
Interesting. So just looking at oh my God, that's so fucking crazy. Because like I unironically will like actually edge for like a couple hours at a time sometimes. And it's like, so just that is shutting off the emotion. And sometimes I'm not even like doing anything to myself because I'm like looking at stuff. I'm just kind of there. So I wonder. So I guess I'm just like, maybe part of it's just I'm trying to escape an emotion. You know, it's like, well, I'm doing this for 2 or 3 hours, so I have no negative emotions right now. Interesting.
So I've worked with people who have pornography addiction, for example, that will have work on one screen and they will literally have pornography
That's
open
crazy.
and playing on the second screen.
But then again, there's times where I will bypass doing work when I should be because I'm too busy giving it up.
You're joking.
No, very common. So we don't talk about pornography addiction. So like, and the worse their life is, the more stress they have. That's when I'll ask them, you know, when are the days that you have porn open on the second screen? And they'll say it's like, it's the day, the worse their stress gets, the worse their use gets.
So how do you help that person?
You teach them a couple of things. One is that you have to understand what the pain is, right? So, and then you teach them alternate emotional regulation skills. So if you teach them other ways to manage their emotions, they won't need the pornography. The reason that porn is so addictive is because from a biological
Because they're so weird, gross. Just grow up. It's like, just relax. Relax, guys. You'll survive having a mature conversation for once in the stream, once a fucking month.
perspective, we're so wired for sex that it is a very effective way to shut off our negative emotions. But if you can teach them how to manage their negative emotions, and the second thing that we do is we metabolize the source of your negative emotions. So if there is some kind of trauma at the root, as we heal that trauma, the drive for the addiction will melt away.
Interesting. Have you dealt with a lot of people that have a pornography addiction?
Sure.
And the sort of common thread is that they all have some kind of early trauma. And I read in your book as well that those people are typically exposed to pornography at a younger age.
Yes. So there's all kinds
That I've had that issue with. I looked at pornography when I was like young, probably like 12 in different ways. But back then I feel like it was crazy too, because the internet, you could look at something and then you would be rabbit holed into like the most degenerate shit very quickly. I feel like now it's probably not as bad, you know, because you could start with fucking boobs and you end up with fucking shitting on somebody. It's crazy. Now I don't know if it's that bad, but it's fucking crazy.
of stuff that happens. But yeah, usually people have, what I would say is they have unmetabolized emotions or a source of constant streaming of negative emotions.
Does it create shame
100%.
in those people? Is that one of the
That's the problem, right? So as I become addicted to pornography, I feel ashamed of myself. And
Yeah.
what's my antidote to shame, Stephen?
pornography?
There we go.
So that's the downward spiral. The
Yeah.
upward spiral looks like
Interesting. Yeah, I feel that.
getting out of that. So I'm watching
So-
pornography. I do something. I need less pornography.
Yeah, so oftentimes what the upward spiral looks like is when you feel shame, come and talk to me, right? So we're going to talk about what you feel ashamed of. You're going to vent that negative emotion. So we also know this is something that Freud discovered, is that experiencing emotion, even if it's not related to a real event, weakens the emotion. So what he sort of found is that if you can get someone to cry in your office as a psychotherapist and they vent that emotion out, they feel lighter, they feel better. The emotional energy has left their body in some way. So that, and then we oftentimes will get to the source of their trauma and we're going to metabolize that emotion that's really deep down there. And that's kind of like, it's kind of like an oil well that's just pumping up this black stuff. So we shut off the
Racist.
oil well, we teach them alternate emotional regulation skills, and we work on building a life that is worth living.
What is one example from your practice where someone has gone from really zero to a remarkable place? Is there a case study that comes to mind where you go, oh my God, that is proof that any transformation is possible?
Sure. So there's a privacy concern. So I'm happy to be a little bit general here, but you know, so I had someone who started using opiates in their teenage years, and at the age of 32 went back to school, and has developed a career and became a best-selling author by the age of 36.
It's a little specific. Who is that, guys? Look that up for me. Was that him? Is it himself?
So in the 4 years that we worked together, they got to writing, which is what they always wanted to do, published a book, and like the book was very, very successful. And then they actually have a separate career on top of that.
Chapter 5, the first conversation. The hardest thing about talking to someone about an addiction they have is that
It's interesting because I know a lot of people, and this is something I think young people struggle with as well. The fear of this is that, I guess part of what I was talking about before is the concept of wanting to figure out exactly what you want to do for the rest of your life, like 18 years old, which is preposterous in today's day and age to come up with. And yeah, that's the expectation when you're in school and they pressure you. You got to know, you got to know, you got to know. If you don't know, you're bad. And it's like, oh, well, there's all these people that are in their 30s now that are, you know, seeing a breath of life. Where it's like, I get to change, I get to go better, I get to, you know, my life's not over at 20. And I will say, like, my 30s has been the best part of my life so far. I'm very lucky and fortunate. And so, like, if you're a young person, you're like, well, I don't know what I want to do. It's probably it's normal to have that feeling. Do something that you feel like you can tolerate that can make decent money so that when you do realize what you want to do, which might not be till you're like 30, you can pursue that because you have the money to pursue that. So, like, trade jobs are great. College isn't bad if you know what you're going for. You know, something that will have a decent yield financially. And you might hit 30 and just realize that it was never a job that you want to do. You now have the money for a hobby that you love. Right. So there's a lot of different factors here.
the first conversation has to be open without it affecting their gaming addiction in this case. That first conversation is the most difficult often.
Yeah, so it's not just for addiction. So if we sort of understand, like, the first conversation that you have with someone about something that they're not doing well in their life, and this relates to like men or incels or whatever, you have to approach that non-judgmentally. So if you want to connect with someone, and a big part of what I believe about addiction, and I learned not believing this is true, is that you can't cure an addiction for someone else. So they have to want to stop.
Yeah, makes sense.
So I've had people, I used to work at 2 rehabs, and these are like 30-day rehabs where people get forced into rehab, never going to work. The person themselves has to want to stop the addiction, conquer the addiction, quit the addiction in order for it to be successful. So how do you convince someone that, okay, this is a problem and like you need to stop this? You can't really convince them. But the best that you can do is approach them non-judgmentally, right? So like, help me understand what is going on in your life. Help me understand why you use this thing. Like, you can have judgments in your mind, that's okay, but be open-minded and be compassionate.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same fundamentals we talked about before with people gravitating towards Andrew Tate. Like, try to understand why. Kind of starts with there.
Recognize that if this person is doing something, they're doing it for a reason. If their brain did not get more benefit than harm out of it, then their brain would not be doing it.
On that first conversation, and also that moment of sort
I
of
guess it's like short-term benefit.
change where they realize that they want to make a change in their life and it's, enough is enough. People often refer to that as the rock bottom. Is it true that people need to, because I spoke to a few people about this, whether we need to get to a rock bottom in order to make those big changes in our lives, or if there's a way to not get to rock bottom before we decide to make the change?
So I'll give you an answer from,
I mean, from my perspective, I don't think you need to hit rock bottom to feel motivated by change. For me, and I know, cringe, I kind of just like stumbled into a new meaning of my life, and I was like, wow. And then things kind of fell into place, and I started becoming a better person without even realizing it. Or my wife, I know, cringe. And then, more opportunities open. You have the bigger, phenomenal support structure. More opportunities open. That's how it's been for me. I didn't have to hit rock bottom and have this massive revelation. It was just like this slow process of like, oh, I feel better with this person. And they add tremendous value to me. And like, I feel motivated and add tremendous value to them. And you kind of just get into that like cycle,
one of my patients who I think knows this way better than I do. See, when you hit rock bottom, you can always pull out a jackhammer and break down to the next level. So there's no such thing as rock bottom. There's just as low as you go before you start moving up. That's honestly what I believe. So you could say that I hit rock bottom, but you could easily, I'm sure I could have done worse, right? And so a lot of people, for them, it is hitting rock bottom. But I think really, I trust my patients that it's just as far down as you go before you turn around, and that's your lowest point.
We can all think of people in our lives that we want to help change. And I guess in what I just said is part of the problem, because we want to intervene in their lives and create change for them. But we sometimes watch them self-sabotaging and then telling us they have this goal, they want to be this or that or the other, but then their behavior continues to follow a similar pattern where they continue to self-sabotage. And as bystanders, sometimes we try and intervene, we try and help them in various ways. I'll pay for your therapist, I'll take care of your gym membership, whatever. What should we be doing as bystanders of someone who's saying they want to change, but is showing no sign of doing anything about it?
Great question.
jack them off.
So what we should do is not be bystanders, but also not quite pay for therapy. So this is something that's very important. So I once had a
I mean, it makes sense. You don't want to like coddle or enable somebody too much. Maybe try to help them get the tools that they need to get the help that they need.
very brilliant teacher at Massachusetts General Hospital who told me that as a doctor, you should never go the extra mile for a patient. And then I was kind of confused by that, right? Because I was taught that, oh my God, like as a doctor, you should sacrifice. You need to go the extra mile. And he said the extra mile is a mile too far. So anything that someone can do for themselves, you should not do for them. So what I sort of really found is that, there's a really interesting case of a patient that I had that was a child with HIV. So this is when HIV was first discovered. They got diagnosed as an infant. So they had a perinatal HIV exposure.
That's rough.
And so this was when we were really discovering HIV. And so everyone bent over backwards for this kid because this is a 7-year-old kid with HIV. So if they ever did anything wrong, it's not their fault. The kid has HIV. They'd come late to appointments. They wouldn't do their homework. Oh, there's always people bending over backwards to help this person, help this person, help this person. So I was this person's doctor when they were in their late 20s. And I was stunned by how incapable they are. They can't do even the most basic things like fill out an application for a particular thing that they needed. They needed the nursing staff to sit with them and fill out the application. Because what we had done is engendered some degree of helplessness by doing everything for them.
By the way, my wife does things for me that I could do myself too. But I agree mostly with this. But you know what I mean? There's still some things that, you probably aren't going to do even if you're capable. My wife and I, that's the thing, is that my wife and I take on roles of things that we could do without the other, but we do anyway, because like we're together forever. So like we are one person. But if an individual, it sounds like, is incapable of existing as a human being because they were infantilized. That's the problem. That's a fundamental issue. People get infantilized, and it's a big problem when you're young, because if you're infantilized, people are like, oh, I can't really have them do this or that, or, that was that whole video we watched the other day about Down syndrome. Where the girl was like, hey, like, stop treating us like we can't do anything and start treating us like we can do something and we can achieve more, which is true. If you're infantilizing somebody, like, oh, they did bad in school, but that's okay. Or, oh, you did, maybe I don't think you're capable of this, or you're not capable of that, so I'm going to do it for you. I'm not going to. Doesn't really help anybody. It doesn't help anybody grow or learn or evolve or change. So
the biggest mistake that a lot of parents make is that they accept responsibility for their kids. And if we love someone who has an addiction, we want to protect them from the consequences of that addiction. So we actually step up and we do more. The problem is that the moment that you start doing more, they will start doing less. So if you look at something as simple as, let's say you've got a roommate and there's dishes in the sink. The more you take responsibility for the dishes, what is your roommate going to do? They're going to do them less.
Yeah.
The same is true. So what I sort of find is that instead of, because we're so afraid, oh my God, like if I don't help them with this, if I don't pay for your therapy, then you're going to be fucked. You're so afraid. And so who's taking responsibility for it? You are. Let them ask you to pay. Let them come to you and say, you know what? I really want to conquer this. I found someone, but I can't afford it. Will you help me?
Yeah, I mean, there's a big mental. Yeah, I get that, and it's funny because it's somewhat, to an extent, will contradict a little bit of what I said before, where I was like, oh, like sometimes, reach out to somebody and see if they need help. But this makes sense on like a very serious issue of like, okay, if somebody's in a bad spot, wait for them to come to you, because like, which applies. There's a difference between saying like, hey, how are you today? Right, versus like, oh, like, hey, here's some unwanted advice, which I probably do sometimes too with other creators, because I feel like I found a really solid groove, and I found like a really solid content protocol that I'm pretty happy with, and I'm seeing, and I'm like, oh, let me share this with like my friend. But at the end of the day, like, me just telling somebody something, it's not gonna do anything if they don't really give a shit, right? Which makes sense. I mean, I'm an egotistical person. When people give me advice sometimes, or often, I tell them to go fuck. I don't tell them anything. I say thank you, and then I ignore it because like I'm like, I'm a man, and I'm very stubborn, But when I go looking for help, especially when I talk to my wife about it, who grounds me, it's a different experience because I'm like looking for it. I'm mentally open and ready and prepared for it.
The outcomes that you see will be drastically different. In my own practice, sometimes I charge a lot of money. And what I have found, 70% of my practice at one point was free. What I found is the number of people who no-show for their appointments, which I'm giving them a big break, the more of a break I give them, and if they're free, they show up the least. If someone has skin in the game, they will actually do it. So my patients who are actually paying for my services, they're the ones who always show up. So what we want to do is we want to start by asking these people, hey, tell me how you feel about your addiction, or not addiction, just tell me what's going on with your gaming, right? Like, how do you feel about your life? Like, help me understand what's going on with you. Start by just understanding the person. And if you do that, everyone has ambivalence. That means internal conflict. There's a part of them that wants to quit, and there's a part of them that doesn't want to quit. The problem is that anytime we see a flash of them wanting to get better, what do? We're like, yay, let's do it. And then what happens? We get that resistance from them. So if I'm like, if I come to you, Steven, I'm like, hey man, I'm thinking about going to the gym. What do you say?
Yeah, come with me.
Right? And then what do people do when you say that?
They don't come.
Right? So what's kind of
That makes sense. Yeah.
interesting. So what I do as a psychiatrist is like, you're just thinking about going to the gym, but like, do you really need to?
Oh, really? You push back?
Yeah, right. So whatever side you take, there.
I mean, I don't know if I would do that. Well, he's a therapist, so he has a different relationship. If it's somebody in your real world, in your life, you probably wouldn't say that. Be like, oh, that's cool. And you could always say like, oh, let me know if you want me to like help you out. But you don't get too assertive with any advice. Let them kind of experience it themselves.
We're going to take the opposite side.
Because if you did in the real world and like somebody in your life's like, oh, I want to lose weight, and you're like, oh, really? Do you really want to? But it makes sense for him from a therapeutic approach. Absolutely.
Did you do that?
Because that's what the science tells us. So there's a technique called motivational interviewing. And anytime you're dealing with something called ambivalence, which is internal conflict, if you push them in one way, they're not moving in that way. They're going to move in the opposite way. I'm not saying that you can't encourage them, but let them take the lead. That's the big difference.
Let it be their motivation.
Let it be their motivation. And anytime they move in the right direction, you want to support that, but don't ever push them. The choice is theirs. And the less that I do for my patients, the better that they end up doing.
Last question. You talk about this 25% rule. What is the 25% rule, and how does one apply it?
So, see, we all think about goals, where I want to be. Now, there's a really tricky problem in our brain. So if I have a goal that I want to be a millionaire, and I work today and I earn $10, how does my brain interpret that? It looks at the effort that I put in and says $10 is nowhere near my goal, and that actually tanks my motivation because it looks at the situation and says, I have not moved sufficiently close to my goal. So the bigger our goal is, the harder it is for our brain to get on board with doing it. So the 25% rule is take anything that you want to accomplish and cut it in half, and then cut it in half again. And this should be your first goal. At a minimum, you can even go smaller than that.
Yeah, just setting up milestones.
12.5, there's no amount that is too small. But generally speaking, if you really look at it, the more ambitious your goals are, the harder they will be to achieve.
Yeah, have small milestones. That's pretty simple. Makes perfect sense, and take it by a year. Like I would love, like I have a loose goal of making like a good amount of money. Like my loose goal is like, I would love it if I made like $250,000. $20,000 a month would be phenomenal. And I'm so fortunate that I'm in the profession that allows that, which is this. I'm not there yet. But then like my loose goal is like, am I doing better than last year? You know what I mean? And it's not good to always compare, but sometimes I compare as like, am I doing as well as other people might be doing in a similar situation to me? Because there's an area in content creation that's a little bit more fluid and dynamic where something might not be hot right now. Some people might be craving some kind of a commentary content. Some people might be craving something different. Maybe they want to watch baseball content or video game content or this. And if you keep a little bit of an eye on like how well your sphere is doing, maybe you're doing worse than you were last month, but maybe compared to your sphere, you're still doing well. Because like, oh, like your sphere's not doing well, but like you're still doing pretty well. which is something that's like positive. And as a content creator, you kind of have to try to keep your mind on that, because you're going to have highs and lows and ups and downs. And if you're like, oh man, I'm doing just as good as I was last year, what's my problem? But if it's like, well, what if last year there was 10% more viewership rate from consumers? They were watching stuff 10% more. And this year there's 10% less, but you're still doing the same. Comparatively, you're doing better than you were last year. You know, so it's about considering all those variables too.
And I know that sounds kind of weird, but you can still achieve it, but only if it's not your goal. That's been my experience. So there's neuroscience to back this up. But even then, you know, when I was 18 years old, I wanted to go to Harvard and I wanted to become a doctor. When I gave up on the goal and I focused on the task at hand. So if you really look at how do you accomplish great things, not by wanting to accomplish great things. I can be at the bottom of Mount Everest and I can look at the top and I can say, I want to climb to the top of Mount Everest. Or I can not even look at the top of Mount Everest. Whether I'm looking at the top or not looking at the top, the way to get to the top is the same, one step at a time. So it's really interesting because everyone is so focused on goals. What I've sort of learned as a psychiatrist and even in my own life is like, focus on today, focus on doing something today, and be super careful about setting a big goal. Because then even if you set a huge goal and you do 50% of it, you'll feel like, oh my God, like I didn't accomplish my goal. And even 50% progress will feel like a failure because you didn't hit your goal, right? This is really weird the way that our motivational circuitry works. So cut your goal in half and then cut it in half again and focus on that one.
It makes sense. It's what
Makes sense. Yeah, cool.
the performance director of, I think, Team Sky Said, David Brailsford, talked to me about many years ago. He said that he used to ban the athletes from thinking about the podium and just focus them on their pedal strokes day on their bikes. And that team went on to become the greatest cycling team of all time, pretty much, from being down and out. And I always wondered why he said he banned them thinking about the medals and stuff like that because it would form as a distraction from today's performance. But it's difficult to do. So, okay, I'll stop setting goals.
It's interesting because I feel similar when I work out. Like I really want to have, I really want to get my numbers back to what they were. So I'm like, I really want to get back to like a solid, like, you know, like 5-plate squat and like a 6-plate dead. And it's like, oh, I want to get there so bad. But it's like that, it's probably getting in my head and making me go like, okay, that's what I want. So I'm not really appreciating that. So far since January, I started at my back squat at like 135 for 5. You know, I'm just getting back into it. Now I'm up to 235. Put on 100 pounds in 3 months. It's like, okay, like that's great. And if I do that the whole year, I might be able to put like another 200 pounds on there. It's like, oh, you know, take it slow. Because there's diminishing returns as time goes on too.
Set them 25% or set them with awareness.
No, I do anyway. To be honest, I don't set big goals in my life. I find it really difficult when people ask me, what's your 5-year or your 10-year plan? You feel like you're bullshitting because the answer in reality is I'm just going to do my very, very best every day.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So I agree with that 100% because what more can you do?
Yeah.
Like setting a 10-year goal doesn't, I mean, we can sort of think that it makes us work harder and it can in some ways, but it's not the ideal way.
It's going to confuse today and cause a lot of procrastination and confusion about what I should be doing today because if my goal is 10 million in 5 years.
Absolutely.
Doing a course online today doesn't feel like
so if you have a 10-year plan, you can afford to waste today. And you can afford to waste tomorrow because you have so much time.
Exactly, and that's not useful. If you've seen my most recent post on LinkedIn, you probably have seen that I'm on a bit of a hiring spree at the moment across my company, Flight Group, trying to find the world's best talent. And throughout these years of building these businesses, my first port of call for hiring has always been LinkedIn Jobs, who are a proud sponsor of this podcast. This is because of 2 reasons. Number one, LinkedIn isn't just another job board. It has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals and quality candidates, which I believe makes it the best place to find and hire
Is this a LinkedIn advertisement?
professionals you can't find anywhere else. And number 2, their process and features. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the hiring process easier with super easy and intuitive features. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. In fact, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours through LinkedIn Jobs. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/DOAC. That's linkedin.com/DOAC to post your job for free right now. And of course, terms and conditions apply. We have a closing tradition where the last guest leaves a question for the next guest, not knowing who they're going to be leaving it for.
Okay.
Interesting.
And the question that's been left for you, if you could write one more book and that book was 1 page long and it was the last message that you could send to the world and your family, what would you use that page to say?
So I can tell you what I would want it to say, but I think writing it in 1 page would be very difficult. Like I would do it, but so I've thought about this, that, you know, if I die tomorrow, I basically only have one regret about life. I only have one thing that I want to accomplish, which is that I'm trying very hard to help a lot of people in the world. And the one regret that I would have if I died tomorrow is that I would not have taught my children what I teach the rest of the world. So I've even thought about this, that if I got diagnosed with cancer and I had 1 year to live, how would I spend that year? I would write a book for my kids that distills everything that I've learned about this sort of motivation, neuroscience, spirituality. It's all the same thing. It's all the same truth. See, the yogis learned this stuff and they were using the same brains that we learned. So they discovered all the principles of neuroscience through internal observation. So I would put on that 1 page, probably 1 page is how many lines? 16 lines, 18 lines, 20 lines maybe. So I'd probably write 20 sutras that are like the core of what I've learned. And that may be things
It'd
like,
probably be easier to communicate to your kids too because you know them more. So that like intuitive learning would be there more.
you know, like one of the sentences will be like, what is the ego?
It's just like easier to talk to people who are more like you because they understand what you mean when you say certain things. You don't have to qualify everything you say, you know?
The ego is that which compares in the sense of self. How does one, introspection is the way to shed yourself of like worldly expectations. Like once you start to know yourself, you won't look to the outside world to tell you who you should be. And as long as you're telling the outside world, as long as you're listening to the outside world to tell you who you should be, you'll never be happy because they keep changing. right? So some of this stuff, it would be something like that, but that's probably what I would do. I'd try to distill everything that I've learned into 20 lines. I was hoping that I can do it in a book, but one page would be tough.
I'm curious about what some of those other lines would be. So you talked about introspection, about ego.
Yeah, so I'd probably include one line about glishta and one line about vasana. So glishta is coloring. So the realization that most of what you experience in life doesn't come from the outside world. It comes from what your mind adds to the equation. So I'll give you an example.
Yeah, that makes perfect. I was just saying that, I guess, like 2 seconds ago about communicating with people that are more like-minded too. Sure.
So if I met you for the first time and I called you a loser, if I said, Stephen, you're a loser, the impact of that, these are just words, but whether that hurts you or doesn't hurt you is based on the interpretation of your mind.
Yeah, I mean, if you feel like you're in a state where you're a loser, that's going to hurt you. But if you're feeling pretty confident in your life, it's like, oh, okay. Like, you're not really going to care. Like, for whatever reason, some random came in here just like 10 minutes ago and said, Destiny owns you, little bro. It's like, okay. I guess if I was feeling self-conscious at a content creator, I'd be like, yeah, this bigger streamer does own me. I'm so sad. But I'm just like, oh, okay. I don't care. I'm doing better compared to myself, like, yesterday. That's cool. It's just like so fucking weird. So yeah, I guess that is basically, to some extent, calling you a loser. It just depends on how you interact with that, which can be more difficult. It's easier to have a positive interaction with negative experiences when you have a positive life or good things going on in your life, So
another good example is, let's say I'm like talking to a girl and I text her and she doesn't text me back. There are 1,000 reasons why she may not text me back in 10 minutes.
Maybe she's pooping.
But it is what my mind
Maybe she hates you guys. Maybe you should fucking stop talking to her and cry.
adds to the reality of the world that actually fucks me the most. And most people don't realize this. They think that, oh, this person dislikes me and this thing is going wrong and this thing is going... No, it's not actually like that. It is your mind that is actually coloring all of your experiences. So there'd be one sentence on glishta, one sentence on vasana. An understanding of the ego, an understanding of where desires come from, how to be happy. This whole idea that chasing an external thing for happiness will not ever achieve it in a lasting way.
You got 2 kids?
Yeah.
What would be the last paragraph you'd ever say to them?
That's a steep question, man. That's rough. That's rough, man.
Probably, I'm sorry I have to go. And I wish I had more time with you.
That's sad, brother. I don't want to think about this stuff.
And then I love you. And
I'm feeling too emotionally vulnerable right now, so I can't really engage with it.
I may be gone in this body, but I'll be around and we'll meet again.
It's a beautiful thing. I like to think that too. I like to think that when I pass away, my wife and I will be together forever, where our souls will somehow bond with each other. I've decided to believe that, so it's true,
It's interesting because, when you meditate, we have this idea that we only live this life. And that's because of the conditioning of our brain. And there are lots of studies. There's a guy at University of Virginia who's done research on past lives. And I've even done like past life psychotherapy with my patients. And when I was meditating, I realized one day that in a past life, I know this is going to sound completely insane, but I've done that. What you're hearing now is not a hypothetical. I've lost a child before. I've been a mother before, and it took me some time to figure this out. But when you meditate, you start
What the fuck are you talking about, brother? I'm going to be open-minded. This is like a weird thing to hear, but I'm going to be
to
open-minded.
discover things about yourself. And I have this very deep sense of loss in me that I've lost a child. This is not hypothetical. I know what it's like to lose a child.
You're losing me a little.
And it's happened to me before, and I still carry that hurt with me from a past life. So when you ask me this hypothetical, this is not a hypothetical for me. This is a trauma that I've experienced, just not in this life. So I'm lucky that so far it hasn't happened. I hope it doesn't happen, but I've chosen to be attached to my kids. And in the same way that we talked about, the moment that I write the book is the moment that I open myself up to success of the book or disappointment in the book. And the moment that I choose to love my kids, I open myself up to the hurt of losing them because I could lose them one day. And so that's one question.
It is gay, isn't it?
That I think I've answered before. It's the first person
When I said that, what I said before.
that's ever asked me that, but
I know you talk about reincarnation. It's just an interesting concept. I don't know if it's true, so I can't be like, oh yeah, that's definitely true. It's stolen valor.
I can feel the hurt.
That's my first thought of like, oh, it feels a little stolen Valerie, but I like this guy, and I don't think he would do that. So it's like interesting,
loss. And just in my own experience, maybe it's an imagination or a construction from the neurons in my brain. But just what I've learned, I think it's like I've been there before, and it's very painful, and I still carry that pain with me.
Do you think that's some kind of generational trauma, or do you believe that was you in another life?
Oh, same thing. So I think now we know from studies of epigenetic inheritance that we as human beings, we actually all inherit memories. So I think it's really interesting because even if you look at your aversion to snakes, how do you have a fear of snakes? Even the first time you see a snake, you'll be scared of it.
Is that like is that you inheriting memories, or is that you inheriting an aversion to snakes, or an aversion to a mixture of stimulus, like the hissing of the snake, the color of the snake, the size of the snake, the posturing of the snake, and you know what I mean? Like, is that actually a memory, or is that like a combination of different protocols in your brain combined that make you afraid of a thing? Does that make sense?
So we know scientifically that we inherit memories that are not our own. So now the question is just a little bit intellectual or philosophical, that if you inherit a memory, was it you? I don't know. I mean, it's part of your DNA. It's part of your epigenetic expression. Would you consider that part of you or not? I think most people would consider your DNA part of you. So I think, yeah. We even have scientific evidence of that you could argue is sort of a mechanism through which we inherit memories from the past, for sure. Whether it's your life or not is up for debate.
My girlfriend said this to me. She's talked about traumas that she feels like come from a past life. It's very difficult to believe. Very difficult to believe, but my girlfriend always seems to be right about everything, eventually. I eventually come to learn through lots of research that what she's saying isn't crazy.
Yep, I feel that.
And she's gotten very, very
It's very annoying sometimes.
emotional at times about things that she thinks she's tapped into from her past life through meditation. She's a breathwork practitioner. She's actually in Costa Rica now doing some retreats and stuff. It's so interesting. I'd love to learn a lot more about that. But for now, Dr. K, thank you so much for so much. But yeah, you're one of the most engaging people I've ever spoken to in my life because you're so deeply passionate about the things that you speak on. And your book is about much more than gaming. The book is called How to Raise a Healthy Gamer, but it's about everything. It's about addictions. It's about our mind. It's about our relationships with both the technology that we have and each other. And then at the top of the book, it says end power struggles, break bad screen habits, and transform your relationship with your kids. But it's much more than just about kids. It's about all our relationships with all things and all people fundamentally, because it's about the human mind. And that's why it's so incredibly important. And if nobody has discovered you online before, I would highly recommend they go and check out your YouTube channel because you managed to distill some of these complex things into highly engaging, science-based advice. And it's a remarkable talent that you have. You're one of the most effective communicators I've ever encountered. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, I always love watching Dr. K videos when I do.
Thank you so much, Stephen.
Or
It's been
reacting.
awesome being here.
Reacting.
I feel privileged to be a tiny slice, a tiny slice of your life because I can see you're such an amazing dude. And like, I'm very excited that you exist in the world today and I get to see what you continue doing.
Oh, what a compliment. Thank you.
All right. That was a beautiful conversation.